Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the NEPA CSEC Student Seminar. My name is Shara Miller. I'm the Public Relations Officer at the National Environment and Planning Agency. And whether you're joining us from near or from far, we are thrilled to have you on this journey of exploration and discovery. Now, geography is more than maps and locations. It's about understanding our planet, our people, and the connection to them. Now, today we're privileged to have experts who will be sharing their insights and expertise. So ensure that you're listening and you're sharing and engaging with us in the chat. Now, I ask that you be polite, that you share, and that you interact with us on a one-on-one basis. So let's get started and make this seminar a meaningful and interactive one. Once again, welcome, and let's dive into the fascinating world of geography. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what's on the program. We spoke about experts, right? And so I'm going to outline what we're going to learn today. So our first presenter is going to be Ms. Charlotte Thomas. She is the Senior Librarian at NEPA. She'll be talking about accessing NEPA's resources, which are going to be helpful for your school-based assessments. Next, we have Mr. Miguel Thaxter. He's the Air Pollution Management Specialist at NEPA, and he'll be speaking about air quality. Next up is Ms. Chanel Raynor, and she is our Coordinator, Marine Resource Management Specialist, and she'll be speaking a little bit about coral reefs. After that, we're going to watch a very interactive video about the ban on single-use plastics for about 10 minutes, and then we'll have a little break. Get up, stretch, write your questions down, everything. That break will give you time to come back and engage even more. Next, after our break, we'll have our presentation on water quality by Mr. Enera Cherrington, who's the Coordinator, Technical Services at the NEPA Testing Laboratory. We have some real experts in the field here, you know. And then after that, we'll have our presentation on mangroves by Mr. Camilo Trench. He's a marine biologist, lecturer at Marine Sciences, and academic coordinator at the University of the West Indies Discovery Bay Marine Laboratory. To close things off, we'll have Mrs. Kenisha Brown-Russell, who will give us some geography SBA tips. She's the head of department geography at Camperdown High School. And of course, we'll have our Q&A. So all those questions I mentioned before, your comments, you'll drop them right there. Now, on the screen, there is a chat feature. We're asking, share your comments and your questions there. We have people that will be monitoring the chat as the webinar goes along. Just give us a little time to get adjusted, and we'll be able to answer you as we go along. Now, I do have to give you a little surprise. We'll be having trivia all throughout the presentations, all throughout the seminar today, and little giveaways, but we can't tell you right now. You have to be listening, you have to be engaging, comment, rep your school, and as we go on, you're going to look at this face and listen to the questions and answer. Now, there are going to be polls that are going to be posted in the chat and alongside on the screen. We ask that you complete them. Let us know, give us a little feedback on the seminar, what you would like, what you'd like to see next year. We want you to work with us, engage with us, whether you're students or teachers. You come together, ask your questions, we're here to help. Complete the poll, complete the survey, and give us some much needed feedback. Now, those schools that are registered via the link will get copies of the presentations after the seminar, and the recording will be placed on NEPA's YouTube channel. So please look out on NEPA's YouTube channel, NEPA Jamaica, and on our social media channels, Twitter, X, as we know it now, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, I want us to put our virtual hands together as Mrs. Angela Hamilton, manager of the Public Education and Corporate Communication branch, comes to give her greetings to bless this seminar. Mrs. Hamilton.
Thank you, Charlotte. Good morning, students and teachers. Sorry, I meant Shari. Good morning, students and teachers, and welcome to NEPA's annual staging of its CSEC webinar for geography students. As was said by Ms. Miller, my name is Angela Hamilton, Manager for Public Education and Corporate Communication at NEPA. Now, this CSEC webinar is a 9th staging of the event, and we're truly delighted to be serving our nation's students in this way. The webinar is one of a slew of programs that NEPA has undertaken for students, and in 2023, the agency entered into an agreement with the Ministry of Education to deliver sensitization sessions to students on a range of topics relating to the environment, and these topics are within the school's curriculum. Now, this arrangement has seen us working with students from the basic and primary school levels to high school students. The agency also offers training to primary school teachers to strengthen their delivery of environmental subject matters. So in addition to this, NEPA engages in practical environmental activities such as beach cleanups, mangrove replanting, bird watching, and nature tours, where students from various levels are invited to participate. These experiences are designed to enrich the students' learning experience and to help them to have a greater appreciation for the planet that we call our home. By now, you may be asking yourself, why does NEPA do all of this? Why do we use up our time and our energy to engage our children? Well, I, for one, am a firm believer that we need to empower tomorrow's leaders to play their part in safeguarding their home, Jamaica, land we love. I also believe that if we want a better Jamaica, then we need to socialize our young people to a new way of thinking so that they do not perpetuate the mistake of previous generations and to take better care of the environment. Students, the problems of climate change and global warming are real, and we all have to do what we can to mitigate their impact on our island. This is why we consider it important to not only engage adults, but students as well. It is our hope that you will not only view these sessions as being relevant for exam purposes, but we hope that you will also have a stronger appreciation for your role in saving the environment and to engage in things like recycling, disposing of your garbage, of your waste responsibly, and to act in ways that will make the air we breathe healthy and enriching. Students, someday it will be your turn to take over the mantle and to steer Jamaica to where we all want it to be. So we at NEPA want to set you up for success, and we believe that knowledge is empowering and that it will help you to make a difference. As I did with the group last year, I am again making an appeal to you, young Jamaicans, to partner with NEPA in preserving the environment for the sustainable development of our country. I am so excited to see so many students from across Jamaica who are logged on to the sessions today. Big up to you wherever you are. I believe that last year's session we had persons from other Caribbean islands logging on as well. Don't know if we have any here today, but if we do, we want to hear from you. So we invite you to state where you're from in the chat. Also, if you're from another parish or any parish in Jamaica for that matter, to state where you are in the chat so that we can have an idea of our reach and to big you up. Students, I do hope that all our students here will find these sessions useful in helping you to complete your SBAs. I want to encourage you as you prepare for your CSEC exams to be diligent and hardworking. There's a scripture that says all hard work leads to a profit. And it is important for you to believe that your hard work will pay off. As I close, I want to thank our teachers for their support that they have given you in your lessons and for helping to facilitate your participation in this morning's session. I must also thank the NEPA team who is responsible for pulling this event together and to express my appreciation for their efforts. They have put together an exciting program, as Ms. Miller has outlined, and this program is supported by an impressive lineup of presenters. A big up to also to Affinity Limited, who has partnered with us in providing the platform to deliver these sessions. I also want to thank the St. Andrew Parish Library for allowing us this venue from where we are streaming. We could not have done it without you. Students, teachers, here's to an enriching experience, and I invite you to enjoy the sessions as much as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hamilton. Thank you. So once we got those inspiring words, we're ready to start the show. So let me tell you a little bit about the NEPA CSEC Student Seminar. So this seminar has been around for 9 years, 9 whole years. And it has taken on a virtual aspect in the last 4 or 5 years, but its impact is felt nonetheless. So it's a virtual event now for 4th and 5th grade students and teachers to learn about the resources available at NEPA for preparing for your CSEC school-based assessments. For geography, it's integral. We need to see those ones and those twos. We're not going for threes. We're not going for threes, ones and twos. So the seminar, which has been held in Kingston and St. Andrew, Manchester, St. Anne, and St. Elizabeth, aims to provide information on the types of resources available, how to access and use them, and the scope and the function of the agency. Google is fine, you know, but why not get the information from the source? Now, that's our overview, and I hope you're listening because that might be a little piece of trivia in there somewhere, because we do have phone cards available for those that participate, you know, Flow, Digicel, we have you covered, so make sure you're listening. Now, some housekeeping matters, because we have to make sure the house is tidy before we go out, no? The webinar is being recorded and we live stream to Affinity's YouTube channel. So if you go on our NEPA Jamaica social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you'll see the link to the YouTube channel. Also, you'll notice that everyone's mic is muted and the cameras are turned off, and that's intentional because we want to keep the focus on our presenters. The chat feature is there, so use it quite a lot. Now, please indicate in the chat if you're experiencing any ongoing technical issues, but we do have a little bit of a limited capacity to deal with the issues while the webinar is running, but we're absolutely addressing it. Now, you can use your Q&A feature that's on the screen to ask specific questions, and please do. And these will be addressed as best as possible. If you're having any issues seeing your question being answered, click the refresh button on the screen and you'll be good to go. Now, a recording of the session will be available on NEPA Jamaica's YouTube channel later on in the week, and copies of the presentations will be sent up in a follow email to everyone who registers. So make sure you register, you know, you want this information firsthand. All right? So look in the chat. Please answer any polls that you see in the chat. We need the information. We really want to have your feedback as we improve our seminar. It's been 9 years. We got to keep the good vibes going. Now, let me introduce our first presenter, Miss Charlotte Thomas. She is a senior librarian, public education and corporate communication branch here at NEPA. And she's going to speak to you about accessing NEPA's resources, because you want your information, your references for your SBA, no? All right. So Ms. Thomas holds a Bachelor of Arts in Language Communication and Society and a Master of Library and Information Studies from the University of the West Indies. She has experience in the fields of teaching, customer service, and librarianship. Her area of specialization includes working with special collections, cataloging and classification, research, and reference work. Her personal interests include information literacy and information management. So you're going to be learning a little bit about geography and library information. I mean, where else can you get that? You can't. And so please welcome your virtual clap, Miss Charlotte Thomas.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our webinar here today. We here at the Sharon O'Connor Documentation Center, which is a special library, we are the main information hub at the National Environment and Planning Agency. All right, so good morning. Sorry about that again. Just a little mishap. All right, so firstly, before I get into my presentation, I'd like to give you an outline of what to expect from this presentation. So basically, what I will go through here with you today is NEPA's roles and function, the services that we offer at the Sharon O'Connor Documentation Center, and tips on how you can go about doing your research. All right, so we're gonna go through NEPA's core function, which is basically why you're here today. So there are certain things that we do at the National Environment and Planning Agency that allows us as the library to have the hub of information that you need. So our core function as an agency includes conservation and protection, application management, environmental management, compliance and enforcement, spatial planning, policy and research, and public education, which is what we're doing here today. All right, so there are a list of available resources that we have that covers a certain amount of topics, right? And that includes climate change, coastal degradation, coral reefs, monitoring reports, water quality reports, air quality reports, maps, and we have information on deforestation, we have parish profiles, we have environmental impact assessments, and those are very common because persons want to know how the environment is affected by the different developments that are taking place. We have policies, standards, laws, regulations, and guidelines. And one of the most common ones that we get reference for is like development orders and so forth. We have also the State of the Environment reports, newspaper clippings database, and those things. So we also have other sources of information that we use here at the library, or that we recommend or we allow our users to use as well. So we have our website, we have our e-documents, and the e-documents are soft copy material that we have that are related to the work of the agency that we use, that we allow persons to access. We also use the resources of other libraries and information points. So for the things that we do not have, we may have other partners that we work with that we can refer you to. And there's also the access to information that what you are not able to get readily, we advise you on how to go about doing that process. All right, so let's just also go through some of the services that we offer. So here at our library, which is our special library, we offer different services. So we have referrals. As I mentioned earlier, there may be materials or something that you thought NEPA may have had or may thought that it's within our scope of work, but it's not. So once you come to us and we realize that this is something that is outside of our scope, we will refer you, and so that's our referral service. We refer you to the appropriate agency or partner. We have the newspaper clippings. From time to time, there are newspaper articles or other things that come out in the newspaper that is pertinent to the environment or what is going on. And so we do keep a database of that. We compile them, and we have a database. So, for example, something that may have been published 10 years ago, and you come to us and you say, okay, I'm trying to search for this, we also have those in a database that we can consult. We also facilitate interviews. We at the library, we don't specifically do the interviews, but we have technical officers in NEPA that are vast in different areas of specialization, that they would be the one that will assist in that. In regard to the interview, though, we do ask that you submit your interview questions ahead of time, and we also ask that you try to do it as early as possible, right? And we have Wi-Fi services, and we do reprographic services, and water quality testing, and also maps. All right, so while we're here advising you on the different resources that we have, there are ways in which you can access it. So we do have the telephone. You can call us, and if it's something that is readily provided over the phone, we can go ahead and provide you with that information over the phone. We also have email access, where you can send us an email. So we do have an email address for our documentation center. There are two, actually. One is public education email, which is pubed@nepa.gov.jm, and we also have our documentation center email, which would be doccentre, that is DOCENTRE @nepa.gov.jm. And as I was mentioning earlier, the telephone, and you're now seeing the telephone number on the screen, which is 876-754-7540, and you can just tell them that you want to speak to the documentation center, and you would be forwarded. So now you're seeing our email coming up on screen, which is what I mentioned earlier. Bear with us. All right, so in order to do your SBAs, which is why you're here today, there are a few tips that I would like to go through with you here today. And before I get into what I have on the screen, firstly, what I always recommend is to ensure that you start early, because once you start early, you're able to mitigate any issues that may arise, right? So start early. Give yourself enough time, because anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? So firstly, know what is required of you. So you got this SBA, ensure that you clearly understand the instructions on what it is you're supposed to do. If you don't understand something, ensure that you ask, and you ask early. Now that you have an understanding of what it is that you're supposed to do, ensure that you create a plan. Make a checklist to say, okay, all right, now that I understand what is required of me, this is how I'm going to go about doing it. So it's basically like a roadmap. And once you create your plan, you're going to go ahead and create multiple drafts. So you ensure that, okay, I started at this point, this is where I want to go, and then you create your drafts. Ensure, as always, that you proofread multiple times to ensure that if there is any error, you can check to see and make those corrections. One of my also personal recommendation is to ensure that you are not the only one reading this document, because sometimes when you write your own work, there are errors that you may not identify easily. So ensure that you have someone, if you have a trusted friend or a parent, or someone that is just good at editing, you can have them just reread to ensure that the errors are identified and another important thing also is to ensure that you have backups. So don't just have it on a thumb drive or on your computer. Ensure that you have multiple backups in the event that one fails, you have another option. And ensure as well that you're citing your sources, because we want to ensure that we're not plagiarizing. We want to give persons credit for the work that they have done. So again, with all of this in mind, ensure that you're starting early. And for us here at the Sharon O'Connor Documentation Center, we are willing and happy to serve you, but we also ask that you reach out to us in a timely manner to ensure that we're able to adequately assist you in whatever information you're seeking. All right, so as I was mentioning earlier, we do have those email addresses, and you can clearly see it on the screen at the moment, right? Another thing that we have here at NEPA, there's some information that we're not readily able to give you, and that is where ATI comes in, which is the access to information email that you're seeing on the screen. So that's also a point of contact that you can reach out to us. So if you reach out to us and we see that this is something that we're not able to readily give you as such based on the access to information guidelines, we could refer you to that unit and they would be able to advise you. However, again, I cannot stress doing all of this very early. There is a timeline as it relates to access to information. The initial time frame is 30 days, and it may even go up to 60 days, depending on the information that you're requesting. So there's some work that we do here at NEPA, and that's why you're here today, because you want to get the information, as Ms. Miller said, from the experts, right? And we here at the Documentation Center, we link you to the experts. So we're like the linking card, because we get your information and we say, okay, you need information on mangroves. Okay, let us find someone that can provide you with that. So there's some work that we do here at NEPA. We do beach monitoring, and we have several beach monitoring sites across the island. And as you can see on the screen, the location and the number of sites, right? Sites. So you have Portland. In Portland, we have 5 monitoring sites. Kingston, 8. Trelawney, 2. Westmoreland and other, we have 2. And the Negril area is a bit special. If you notice, it says Negril and Hanover and Westmoreland to the screen, and you see 14. All right, so we also do air quality reports here at NEPA. So currently we monitor both PM10 and PM2.5 at the following locations. So in monitoring that, and you will hear further about that in Mr. Taxter's presentation, where you see that in Crossroads, Aftertree, Constant Spring, Spanish Town Road, Portmore, Mandeville, and Montego Bay. So those are the areas that we're currently monitoring at the moment as it relates to air quality. We also have maps that you're able to access here at the agency. And as you can see on the screen, we have air quality emission sources, public beaches. So we have maps of both public and private beaches. You can see that there's also a web page on our website that you're able to access this information from, a beaches page, and it gives you those maps if it is that you'd like to see. We also have garbage dumps or landfill, solid waste, management watershed, and we also have NWC wastewater maps and water quality monitoring sites and status. And just to plug in, I know I mentioned earlier that we have our website. You can go to our NEPA website, and there's quite a bit of information on the website. There is a search bar there that you can put information in that you're looking for. So if you're looking for a development order, you can check that. And as you can see, we're now seeing the remainder of the available maps that we have on, or that we have access to. So we also have water quality, fresh marine, fecal, and so forth, freshwater biochemical, oxygen demand levels. So those are also some other maps that we have available. And as you can see, as I was mentioning earlier, about our website, you can see the home, about us, and the search bar. So you can use that search bar to see what you can access, because there's some information that you don't have to necessarily reach out to us like that to get. There are development orders that are on the website. And so if you have like a particular development order for a specific parish that you're looking at, you can use that search bar to locate that information. And we also here at the Documentation Center have our library management system, and we utilize the COA library management system. And for the COA library management system, there is a user interface, and what you're seeing currently is our user interface, and it works similar to how you would search in Google, where if you put something in, it gives you a result. For this specific search, we were looking for mangroves, and it brought 43 results. So you can go to our website and utilize that to search for your relevant information. And we went through the access to information earlier, so quickly you can just send an email, or if it is that you reach out to us, we will let you know if this is something that should go through access to information. However, there are some documents that are exempt from the access to information for security purposes, but the team will advise you whether whatever it is you're asking for is something that can be shared or it falls under the exempt documents. So there are other sources where you can also get information. So if it is that you come to us, as I was mentioning earlier, and it's not something that's in our purview or scope, we have several partners that we can refer you to, and you're seeing a listing of them on the screen. And as you can see it, I'll just highlight about 3 of them. And so we have ODPM and the Planning Institute of Jamaica. We also have Urban Development Corporation, and for Urban Development Corporation, they manage and develop government real estate. So if you're reaching out to us in regard to something like this, we would refer you to them if it's outside of our scope. All right, so we mentioned our newspaper clippings earlier, which we would have gone through already. All right, so I just want to say thank you for coming. And before I go, I'd like to leave you with a word of encouragement. And as you can see on the screen, reading is essential for those who seek to rise above the ordinary, and this is John Ron. And also, research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. And that's by Zora Neale Hurston. And my personal favorite, today a reader, tomorrow a leader. And that's Margaret Fuller. I want to also again thank you all for taking the time out to come to our webinar. And we here at the Sharon O'Connor Documentation Center is looking forward to serving you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. We're in good hands. You hear about all of those resources that you can actually access from NEPA and the various partners? There's a wealth of information. You need to utilize it. Google's not the only resource. You can come to NEPA's Sharon O'Connor Documentation Center. So I want to give a little shout out. We have a number of schools from across Jamaica tuning in right now. We have Clarendon College, Edwin Allen, Titchfield High all the way in Portland, Mayday High in Manchester, Frome High in Westmoreland, Georges, Discovery-based STEM Academy in St. Anne, St. Hughes, Waterford High in St. Catherine, Happy Grove High in Portland, Brownstown High, and even St. Anne High. We have had them since early. Big up on yourself. You're here because you want to learn and take advantage. And so, in the spirit of taking advantage, I'm going to ask a quick little question for a $200 Digicel credit. See it here? I have it in my on. And so, I have a $200 Digicel credit for, remember I had asked you to use the Q&A feature, the chat feature, the Q&A feature, and they tell you, right? You know, remember? Well, if you're just joining, you're late. I'm not going to mark it on, but you're late. So use the chat feature or the Q&A feature to write your questions. If you're doing it as a group, ask your teacher, raise your hand, ask the teacher, have your questions there. So the first question I'm going to ask is, how long has the CSEC seminar been put on? How many years has the CSEC seminar been going on, right? Remember, I said it more than once, more than twice. You know, should I listen to me? If you don't listen to me, hello. For your $200 Digicel credit, how many years has the NEPA CSEC seminar been put on? Put it in the chat, put it in the Q&A. All right? See it here? If you don't answer, I'm going to take it, okay? Even if I have line phone, I'm going to take it. All right? And that was the card prize. Ms. Thomas gave us a wealth of information, and if you weren't listening, you're going to lose out, okay? I have 2 questions, and this is not phone card money. Phone card money is nice, you know, don't lie. Digicel prices are expensive. But these are 2 separate prizes from Ms. Thomas's presentation. First question, quick fingers, quick brains. Name 2 partners. Uno, dos. See, I give you a little Spanish, a little Espanol. Name 2 partners that the NEPA Documentation Center can refer you to for more information. So if we don't have it, where can we direct you? Name 2 partners. All right? That's question 1. Put it in the chat. We have many people looking. First come, first serve, first win. Name 2 partners that we can refer you to for more information. That's question 1. And question 2, list 1 way you can contact NEPA's Documentation Center. So you have an assignment, you have questions. What's 1 way you can get in touch with NEPA's Documentation Center? All right? This is not phone card prize, this is different prize, okay? So list 1 way you can contact NEPA's Documentation Center, 2 partners that you can refer to for information, and how long has the CSEC seminar been going on? 1 prize per question, okay? But type it down in the chat. You have multiple schools here. You must win a little something, man. You must win a little something. So on to our next presenter. And a birdie told me, a little birdie pinched me and tell me that there is a special grand prize for the student with top participation. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You actually have to participate. So don't even try and butter me up. Participate. All right. Our next presenter is Mr. Miguel Thaxter. He's the Air Pollution Management Specialist at the Air Quality Management Branch. And he's going to be speaking about air quality. Now, Mr. Thaxter specializes in air quality monitoring and assessment. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Applied Chemistry from the University of the West Indies and is completing his master's degree in atmospheric chemistry. UE are good place and good things, you know. UE, UTech, we have the talent here. Mr. Thaxter's responsibilities include reviewing local air quality regulations, preparing technical reports, and conducting compliance audits of industrial facilities. He has participated in many scientific conferences and is dedicated to advancing scientific knowledge and practical solutions in environmental management. So I want you to give a virtual round of applause as Mr. Thaxter comes to do his presentation on air quality.
So thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for listening and taking part so far in the presentations. So my presentation today is on the ambient air quality in Jamaica. And my presentation is in 2 parts. firstly, I'll talk on introduction to air pollution, where I'll discuss what is air pollution, the sources or causes of air pollution, the impacts of air pollution, the common air pollutants that causes air pollution, and the air quality monitors that are used to monitor air pollution in Jamaica. I will then move on to the outlook on air quality in Jamaica, where I look at NEPA's role as it relates to air quality management in Jamaica, the locations of the ambient air quality stations, historical trends, and I'll talk little on the recent Sahara dust wave in Jamaica and its impact on the air quality. All right. So when we think of air pollution, there are several things that can come to mind. For example, car exhaust, emissions from industries, as well as fire. Now, when these activities occur, they release pollutants into the atmosphere. And when these pollutants are released into the atmosphere, they can be released in large amounts. And when they're released in large amounts, they can be at a level where they can cause impacts. They can create an effect on our health as well as on the environment. Now, this is air pollution, and the correct definition of air pollution is the presence of any chemical, physical, or biological species in the air, which are usually present at high concentrations, such that it becomes harmful to humans, animals, and plants. Now, what causes air pollution? Well, air pollution can be caused from natural sources, but mostly air pollution is caused from man-made or anthropogenic sources. All right, so examples of natural sources of air pollution. Examples of natural sources of air pollution include dust storms such as the Sahara dust, which I'll discuss more in this presentation. We also have volcanic eruptions as well as forest fires. Now, man-made sources of air pollution are mostly from combustion of fossil fuels. So for example, industrial facilities, they will burn heavy fuel oil. Vehicles such as trucks and regular normal vehicles, they will burn diesel fuel or gasoline fuel. Also, when we cook, for example, when we're out of gas, we can use coal or wood as a backup to cook our food as well as for roasting our breadfruit. And this is also a source of air pollution. As well as when there's the garbage truck is not around and we have our garbage on site, so we'll burn our garbage, for example, open burning. And this is also another source of air pollution. All right. So air pollution is associated with some serious health effects, and the immediate health effects of air pollution include worsening of cardiovascular and respiratory illnesses. So for those persons with asthma, it can result in frequent asthma attacks or shortness of breath. It can also add to stress to our heart and lungs, resulting in us breathing very heavily. It can also result in loss of lung capacity and decreased lung function. Also, it can result in a shortened lifespan as a result of exposure to polluted air. Now, we also have long-term effects, and these long-term effects include stroke, development of respiratory diseases, as well as cancer. Now, who are the persons that are most at risk? Now, individuals with pre-existing respiratory challenges, pregnant women, as well as young children and the elderly, these are the persons that are most at risk when they're exposed to air pollution. And on the global scale, according to the World Health Organization, outdoor air pollution is responsible for approximately 4.2 million deaths each year. And a majority of these deaths are in countries such as China and in India. Now, the picture of the newspaper cover on your right shows the impact of the Rotan fire on air quality in Kingston, and this was in 2015. And as you can see, air pollution is real. It can affect our health, whether you are young, you're old, or you have compromised health issues. Now, we have different types of air pollutants. And the first type are criteria air pollutants, also known as CAPs. And these are pollutants that can cause damage to our health, the environment, as well as property, and are used as indicators of air quality. So these are air pollutants that we monitor. So these include particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, as well as ozone. So these are pollutant gases, as well as lead. Now, the second type of air pollutant is our priority air pollutants, also known as POPs. And these are pollutants that are hazardous, they are toxic, and they are known to cause cancer. So exposure to these pollutants, such as benzene, can result in us developing cancer. Okay. All right. So I've given examples of some of the criteria pollutants. So on that list, particulate matter is one of those pollutants that is of special interest globally. And this is because it is one of those pollutants that is more linked to serious health effects. And particulate matter, these are small solid or liquid particles that are suspended in the air. And they're divided into different types based on their particle size. And these include total suspended particulate matter. Sorry, go back. Total suspended particulate matter, PM10, as well as PM2.5. Now, PM10 refers to particulate matter that are less than 10 microns in size, and PM2.5, which is much more smaller, refers to particulate matter that are 2.5 microns in size. Now, both PM10 and PM2.5, they may be emitted directly into the atmosphere from air pollution sources, which can be natural sources as well as man-made sources. They can also be formed via atmospheric chemical reactions involving gases in the atmosphere. Now, to visualize what a particulate matter might look like, imagine a fine beach sand, which you can see on the screen. So this is about 90 micrometer in size, and this is the smallest beach sand particle. A strand of human hair is roughly around 50 to 70 micrometers in size. So this is like 5 to 7 times larger than that of a PM10 particle. So these particles are very fine. These particles cannot be seen with the naked eye. And so these are microscopic particles. So being that these particles are very fine and small, they can be easily inhalable. And once we inhale those particles, they can penetrate deep into our lungs as well as not into our bloodstream, and hence they are associated with serious health effects. Now, to protect ourselves from the harmful effects of air pollutants, such as PM2.5, PM10, and the gases such as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and ozone, Jamaica has established ambient air quality standards. And ambient air quality standards are standards that limit the concentrations of these pollutants into the atmosphere. These are threshold values where the concentration of these pollutants should not pass or be above or exceed. And so they are for different averaging time periods. So for example, the standard for PM2.5 will be 15 for the annual, and for the 24, it will be 35 micrograms per cubic meter. All right, so how does NEPA manage air pollution? Well, NEPA is the lead government agency with a mandate for environmental management, and we are responsible for the management of the air quality across Jamaica. So we have regulatory tools that we use to manage air pollution or to control air pollution. And some of these tools include the Natural Resource Conservation Authority, which involves issuing of environmental permits and air pollution discharge licenses to industrial facilities. We also have ambient air quality standards, which I've just mentioned, and the Natural Resource Conservation Authority air quality regulations. So, the Air Quality Management branch of NEPA operates air quality monitors across the island, and these monitors are located in different urban areas. For example, Portmore, Spanish Town, Montego Bay, Mandeville. And these monitors will measure the concentrations of the different criteria pollutants, and we use this to provide data on air quality and to identify potential health risks. All right. Now, what you're looking at are pictures showing the different monitors that we use to measure particulate matter. And you can see these monitors vary in size. Some are large and bulky, some are small. And these monitors are operate continuously throughout the year, 24 hours a day, 365 days in the year. And we also have monitors that also measures the gases. So these monitors Yes, so these are the pictures showing the monitors that measure the gaseous pollutants. So these monitors are stored inside temperature control cabins, and they also operate continuously throughout the air. So both the particulate matter monitor as well as the gaseous pollutant monitor, they are very expensive monitors. So they cost roughly around $5 million per monitor. And so air quality monitoring on a whole is a very expensive field as it relates to monitoring of pollutants. All right, so this is a map of Jamaica, and this map shows the location of the different ambient air quality monitoring stations that are distributed across the island. Now, in blue, it shows air quality monitoring stations that are operated by NEPA, as well as by the private industrial facilities, and in red, it shows industrial facilities that are located nearby. Now, majority of these stations, they will monitor particulate matter. And as I've mentioned, particulate matter is one of those pollutants that seriously impacts our health. And so more focus or more interest will be in monitoring this pollutant. Now, looking at the historical trend as relates to pollutant in Jamaica, so on the left, the graph on the left in red, it shows the sulfur dioxide annual average concentration on Marcus Garvey Drive, and the graph on the right in blue, it shows the nitrogen dioxide annual average concentration on Marcus Garvey Drive. Now, Marcus Garvey Drive is an industrial area in Kingston, and located on Marcus Garvey Drive are several industrial facilities that will emit pollutants, and some of these pollutants will include sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide as the main gaseous pollutants. Now, on the same facility, within the same area on Marcus Garvey Drive, we have monitors that measure sulfur dioxide as well as nitrogen dioxide. And based on our monitors, the data that is coming from our monitor, it shows that these concentrations are relatively low, so the trends continue to show low impact from the gases. And this is because the concentrations are very low below the standards for the sulfur dioxide as well as for the nitrogen dioxide. So we have been monitoring these concentrations from 2016 to present. Now, particulate matter remains one of that pollutant here in Jamaica that drives air quality, meaning that it's responsible for deterioration in air quality. Now, this map shows the different locations in Kingston where we would have monitored particulate matter. For example, Crossroads, Spanish Town Road, Old Hope Road, Mona, Rockfort, Palisados, Arborview, and on Marcus Garvey Drive. So this is the data that we have gathered from 2012 to 2023 in the Kingston metropolitan area, and it shows the annual average PM10 concentrations. Now, you can see that the areas with the highest PM10 concentrations, these are located on Spanish Town Road as well as on Rockfort. So these two locations exceeded the ambient air quality standard almost every year. And these two locations have been identified by the agency that will require special intervention. Now, I've mentioned PM10 now, moving on to PM2.5 now. Now, PM2.5 is one of those species that is much more smaller than PM10, and we also monitor PM2.5. So we monitor PM2.5 in different urban centers, such as in Mandeville, Montego Bay, Spanish Town, and Constant Spring. Now, based on our data, the trends in PM2.5 concentrations show slight increases for some urban centers. For example, in Montego Bay, which is shown in red, and Spanish Town, which is shown in green. So within these areas, we observed that PM2.5 concentrations exceeded the annual standard. Now, this plot, it might look complicated, but what I want you guys to look at is the two peaks. So this is a time of day trend, where it shows the variation of the PM2.5 concentrations in the different urban centers in Mandeville, Montego Bay, Spanish Town, Constant Spring, and Crossroads. So we look at how PM2.5 varies within the day, right? So you can observe that there are two distinct peaks at each location, and these peaks occur in the early morning, that is between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., and in the evening between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And so these two peaks are during rush hour traffic periods, and shows that traffic impacts heavily impacts PM2.5 concentrations. So if you're leaving to school early in the morning or to work early in the morning and returning back home in the evening, during this time period, you're more likely to be exposed to higher level of air pollution. Now, I've shown that man-made sources such as emissions from motor vehicles and industries are major sources of air pollution in Jamaica, but we also have natural sources that affects our air quality. And one of these is the Sahara dust wave, which I'll also discuss. Now, the Sahara dust, these are very fine particles of sand and mineral dust from the Sahara Desert, and they originate from North Africa. So they are formed via wind erosion of the desert surface as well as strong winds. So the winds will blow these particles across the ocean, across the Caribbean Sea towards Jamaica. Now, these dust particles are composed of particulate matter, PM10, as well as PM2.5. Their mineralogy include quartz, clay, iron, and iron oxides, and they contain trace elements such as aluminum, calcium, and magnesium. So this is a bit of chemistry. So this is a natural atmospheric phenomenon. Now, in Jamaica, the Sahara dust occurs throughout the year, but it generally peaks June to August, and the dust plumes can last up to a week. So during this period, it is characterized by hazy conditions, stable air, reduced rainfall, warmer temperatures, as well as increased particulate matter concentrations. So the image that you're looking at is a satellite image of the Sahara dust wave over the Atlantic Ocean, which is heading towards Jamaica. Now, for us to assess the impact of the Sahara dust on our air quality, monitoring data was retrieved from the agency's PM2.5 monitoring network, and the PM2.5 data was analyzed during periods of the Sahara dust wave in Jamaica. This was last year in 2024, and we compared those PM2.5 data to that of the daily PM2.5 standard, and we also compute the air quality index, which I'll discuss more about using the PM2.5 data. Now, the image that you're looking at on the right, it shows one of our air quality monitoring stations. This is a PM2.5 air quality monitoring station located at Crossroad, which we retrieved the data at this location. All right. So I've mentioned air quality index, and one might ask, what is the air quality index? So the air quality index is a tool that the agency used to communicate air quality to the public. So this index will tell us whether the air quality is either good, as shown in green, or hazardous, as shown by the maroon color. So it is an index value, and each of these values are color-coded, and it is a range as well. Okay. So what you're looking at now, it shows a time series plot of the daily average PM2.5 concentrations across the different urban centers in Crossroads, Alpha Tree, Constant Spring, as well as Montego Bay from January to July in 2024. And you can see that there are three distinct peaks which I've highlighted. So these are on May 14, June 17th, and on June 28th. So these are the peaks that we observed during the Sahara dust wave. And during that period, we observed that these peaks were also below the ambient standard. We also observed peaks in April, and this was as a result of the Roatan landfill fire. Now, using the air quality index, we found that the air quality was moderate based on the peaks that we observed in these locations. So moderate meaning that the air quality has a moderate risk to our health. So those persons who are more extremely sensitive to air pollution would have been more seriously affected. We also observed that there were less good days. As you can see, there are less green, and there are more yellow. So on most days, air quality was moderate, and this is just for Crossroads only. In April, which I've shown on the previous slide, the peak, we also observed that peak, and during that period, which was during the Riverton landfill fire, we observed that the air quality was unhealthy. So those persons, the young children, the pregnant women, the elderly, those persons would have been more seriously affected when they were exposed during that Riverton landfill fire in April of 2024. Now, this slide shows a comparison of the air quality conditions at Crossroads before, during, and after the Sahara dust wave. So the second image, or the second picture on the right, it shows what the air quality looks like during the Sahara dust period. And it shows a deterioration in air quality, which is based on the hazy sky and compared to after, which is the fourth image on your right, which shows a clear blue sky. Now, when we compare this to previous Sahara dust episodes in 2020, coming. The air quality is more severe, so you can see that there's more deterioration in air quality, so we couldn't see the mountain. We could hardly see the mountain in the background. So it shows that this air quality, during that period, the air quality was unhealthy. And being unhealthy means that the general public would have been exposed to more serious air pollution. So these locations would have included Mandeville, Montego Bay, Punchtown, and Constant Spring, so as well as other locations during that period in 2020. So to end, I just want to highlight that air quality is something that is very important. We monitor it because it can affect our health, whether you're young, you're old, or you have compromised health issues. And so the agency continues to monitor air quality, and we use the air quality index as one of the tools to report the status of the air quality, whether it is good, it is moderate, it is unhealthy. So I would like to thank you for listening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thaxter. Let me get myself situated here. You know what, let me just hold this. Okay, thank you, Mr. Thaxter. Well done. I understood clearly where you were and what you're trying to emphasize with air pollution and air quality in urban and rural areas. Thank you so much. So, I have some good news. We have our trivia winners. We have our 3 questions. Remember from Ms. Thomas's presentation, our first winner of our $200 digital phone card, Ms. Anastasia Morris, clap yourself. We also have Ms. Adiana Spencer from Mayday High, who won one of the trivia questions for Doc Center. And Ms. Christine Blake. You're all winners, but they're the most winningest of the winners. All right? Thank you for participating. Also remember, there is a poll feature on the screen. Please use the poll feature. We need your feedback. Use the poll. Don't make me tie a price to the poll feature, you know. Don't do it. But use the poll feature, give us your feedback. It's on screen right now. Please fill it out. Also, for the trivia winners, the phone card winners, please contact 876-552-4942 to collect your prizes. It's in the chat. That again, it's 552-4942. And I hope you didn't forget that the top student, the student that participates the most, asking questions the most, answering questions the most, will get a pretty special prize. So please participate and engage. We also have some more schools joining in a little late, 3 prize gone and ready. And the information is out there. The speakers have some insightful information that's going to help you majorly. So keep on watching. We have McGrath High, they're in the house, Godfrey Stewart, Tarrant High, and Greater Portmore High. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me get into Mr. Thaxter's questions. He has 2 questions, And so remember to the chat and the poll, but Mr. Thaxter's questions are: 1, can you name 3 air pollutants? 1, 2, 3. 3 air pollutants. So 3 pollutants that affect the air. Drop it in the chat, quick. First come, first win. Second question, can you think of one way in which we can reduce air pollution? So, can you name 3 air pollutants? And can you think of one way we can reduce air pollution? Put it in the chat, quick fingers. All right, our next presenter is Miss Chanel Raynor. Now, Ms. Chanel Raynor is the coordinator, Marine Resource Management Specialist in the Ecosystems Management Branch at NEPA. Now, she has over 9 years of experience and a Bachelor's of Science in Marine Biology from the University of the West Indies. She holds a professional engineering master's degree in ocean science from the University of Science and Technology in South Korea. So she's international. Ms. Raynor coordinates island-wide coral reef monitoring at NEPA and oversees the implementation of NEPA's coral restoration strategy. She's a focal point at the International Coral Reef Initiative, ICRI, in Jamaica, advancing coral reef protection strategies on local and international levels. Her proactive approach and dedication continue to shape marine resource management and environmental sustainability. So let's welcome Ms. Raynor.
Good morning, students. Good morning, teachers. One minute, please, as we get the correct presentation up. Okay, morning again, students. So today I'll be discussing the status of Jamaica's coral reefs. So I'm gonna give you an overview of what coral reefs are, describe NEPA's monitoring program, and give you some insight into what you can do to help protect our corals. So what are corals? Corals are animals, actually. They are small animals that live in groups, and they build hard skeletons made up of calcium carbonate. Hard skeletons made up of calcium carbonate. They also have stinging tentacles called nematocysts, and they have a symbiotic relationship with tiny algae called zooxanthellae, and this is how they get their food. So the corals so on the screen you can see what the makeup of a coral looks like. So in the middle, in the main body, you have the coral polyp, and this is the animal part of the coral. As I said before, they have tentacles, and this is how they eat. They use their tentacles to trap and pull prey into their mouth, but most of corals get their energy from the symbiotic zooxanthellae, which is a tiny algae that lives within the coral polyp. The algae is photosynthetic, which means it gets its energy from the sunlight. And this is how the corals get most of their energy and the vibrant colors that you see when you look at them under the water. Corals can grow in different shapes. We have branching corals, encrusting corals, platy corals, and massive corals. On screen, we have examples of massive, encrusting, and platy corals. And we also have soft corals like sea fans, which is on your bottom right screen. Depending on how the corals are shaped within the water, we have different terms to describe them. So you have fringing reefs, barrier reefs, atolls, and patch reefs. Jamaica has fringing reefs. These are reefs that are near the coastline, which surround the island, and they're separated by a shore or, in some instances, shallow lagoons. For further reading, you can look up what images of each of these coral formations look like. Corals are found within the tropical and semi-tropical waters. This is generally limited to the latitude 23 degrees north to 23 degrees south, which is where Jamaica is located. On screen is a map of the corals that are located along Jamaica's coastline. According to the Nature Conservancy, we have approximately 1,240 kilometers of coral reefs around Jamaica. I know it's a little hard to see, but those yellow dots surrounding the island's coast and the yellow dots that would delineate the reefs in the Pedra banks, those are the corals that surround Jamaica. What do corals need to survive? Corals need clean water. Ideally, water temperature should range between 23 to 29 degrees Celsius. They like when water is low in nutrients, which means it's low in nitrates and phosphates. They like when it doesn't have a lot of silt or sediment in it, so it's clean, clear water. Because they live in the ocean, salinity is necessary, and they prefer salinity between 32 to 42 parts per thousand. In Jamaica, most of our reefs are found within a 45-meter range. That doesn't say that there aren't corals deeper than that, but our monitoring primarily focuses on our corals at that depth range. Like many living things, hard corals are susceptible to diseases and changes in temperature and water quality. When this happens, the corals become stressed, and as a result, they may release their symbiotic zooxanthellae, which, as I mentioned, is a tiny algae that lives within the coral polyp. And when the coral releases this algae, it's a phenomenon known as coral bleaching, and this causes the coral to lose its color. Because remember, the zooxanthellae, the tiny algae, is what gives coral its color and what also gives coral most of its energy. So what's gonna happen when a coral loses its zooxanthellae? It becomes stressed, and if conditions do not return to more favorable within a short period of time, the coral will be defined as bleached, and if conditions don't return to normal, then the coral will eventually die. Not all bleached corals are dead. It is possible for the zooxanthellae to return to the coral and for it to recover from whatever stress caused it, but if the zooxanthellae does not return, the coral will die. What are some of the common causes of coral degradation? So sedimentation. As I mentioned, this is when there's a lot of tiny particles in the water and it smothers the coral, and the corals aren't able to feed efficiently, and it eventually slows down their metabolism and they become stressed and may possibly die. Increased temperature. This is when the temperature of the water increases so high that the corals become stressed and they may lose their symbiotic zooxanthellae as a result. Other conditions that may cause this is water pollution, physical damage, and diseases. Predation is also an issue when it comes down to coral reef degradation, and marine and coastal development, which would either impact the corals directly or it would have any effects on the water pollution or water quality within the area. The consequences of coral reef destruction include this bioecosystem that you have in the ocean has now been depleted, and some of the functions of corals is to protect our shorelines from wave activity. So on screen is an image of Hellshore Beach in St. Catherine. And these are one of the examples of how loss of a reef system has resulted in erosion of a beach. Corals form a protective barrier around our coastline, and when waves approach the reef system, they slow down the wave energy that then reaches your sandy beaches. So having a reef in front of your beach is vital to protect it from wave energy, and it also helps protect it from storm surges during intense wave activities. Destruction of our coral reef also affects you directly by decreasing the amount of fish and the size of the fish that you have available in your near shore waters. It increases the coastline vulnerability to storm activity, which may also impact an area to mitigate against flooding, such as your coastal towns. Not having coral reefs also affects our tourism industry because people come to Jamaica to scuba dive and look at our reefs. There's also a relationship between having corals and having wide sand beaches. So this is just a few instances of how the destruction of coral reefs affect you. On screen is a list of legislation relevant to the protection of coral reefs. So in the context of you doing your SBA, these are some pieces of legislation that you can cite in your write-up for your work, and it can be used for further reading. But I'm not going to go into detail into the different laws. So now I'm going to talk about the work that NEPA does. So NEPA monitors coral reefs at 20 sites every 3 years. Previously, this monitoring was done annually, but to align with regional practices, we've changed it to every 3 years. So in 2023, we monitored coral reef at 29 sites across the island. The map on the screen shows you the location of our monitoring sites. And our monitoring looks at hard coral cover, macroalgal cover, and the number of fish on a reef, or the fish biomass. Macroalgae is a weedy vegetation that naturally occurs on a reef. However, when you have more macroalgae versus coral, that's bad for the reef because it can smother the corals. And it also takes up space that new corals or baby corals are able to settle on and grow. So based on the monitoring that we conducted in 2023, we noted that 41% of our sites were ranked as poor and 58% were ranked as critical. So this is saying that majority of our monitoring sites across the island are in a critical state. On screen is a detailed list of the monitoring locations that you can look back at when you're looking at the recording. And just to explain a bit more about what critical means, this means that there's more macroalgae on the reef versus hard coral, and it means that fish biomass or the fish count is relatively low. What we've noticed is that fish biomass is higher in areas that are within marine parks or fish sanctuaries versus reefs that are not within these marine protected area systems. On screen is a comparison of our coral reef health from 2011 to 2023. And it just summarizes that from 2011 to now, our coral reef has decreased, and it means that we as people and government have to put more targeted efforts into reversing the damage of our coral reefs. Another thing that NEPA monitors in relation to reefs is sea surface temperature. On screen is a picture of a data logger attached to the reef substrate using zip ties. And this little device measures temperature, and it has the capabilities of measuring light intensity. We share our data with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. NOAA has a bleaching alert model. Remember I said that coral bleaching is when the temperatures in the water increase and the corals lose their symbiotic zooxanthellae. So NOAA has a model that predicts when bleaching will occur and the intensity of the bleaching event. By NEPA sharing their data with NOAA, they have been able to validate this prediction model, and that's just a fancy way of saying that they know it works because our data on the ground corresponds with their predictions. By tracking the changes in surface temperature, it allows NEPA to inform some of their regulatory processes. For example, in a development setting, NEPA will grant permission for an applicant to relocate corals. And from the data we've gathered, we've been able to pinpoint what time of year we can expect our corals to be most stressed in terms of temperature. And this is between August and October. So on screen is the distribution of our various sea surface temperature monitoring locations. We have 27 sites spread across 8 localities in total. And this monitoring is done every year. So for those who are interested in specific data, on screen is a trend summary from 2013 to 2023, and highlighted are 2019 and 2023. These are specific years in which the Caribbean region experienced a bleaching event, and around Jamaica, our marine protected area managers reported bleaching in all marine parks and all fish sanctuaries with a manager. And on screen is an image showing coral being bleached, and it's 3-phased. So in the first image, you have a coral before the stress event. In the middle is a coral after the stress event, or during the stress event. So you have a coral that looks bleached, and that's indicative of the white pale coloring. And then in the last image, you see the coral's color has returned to normal. And that's what happens when the coral is able to recover from the stressor. It's possible for it to get back its zooxanthellae. So the image on the screen shows our results from our 2023 monitoring. The main takeaway from this is that during the month of August to October is where we saw the highest sea surface temperature. So that is the time of year in which our reefs are the warmest and the corals are most stressed. So around this time, it's important to reduce the anthropogenic stresses towards coral, so that you don't combat an already stressful situation. So in summary, most of Jamaica's coral reefs are ranked as critical and poor, and fish biomass and coral cover has been recorded higher in areas within marine parks or fish sanctuaries. And Jamaica experienced major bleaching events in 2019 and 2023. And our sea surface temperature monitoring has showed us that annually, our warmest months on the reef is between August and September. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Chanel, thank you. It was very informative. A coral reef, remember coral reefs are so much to Jamaica in terms of providing habitats for organisms and just being a source of beauty. So we need to protect them, and we need to do everything in our power to ensure that they last for generations. So thank you so much, Ms. Rayner. And a little update. We have some winners based off Mr. Thaxter's air quality presentation. Our two winners, Mr. Justin Pedler. Justin, you here? You're a winner, you're a winner. And Miss Annabelle Johnson. You answered correctly to Mr. Thaxter's 2 questions. Pat yourselves on the back. We're seeing all of the comments, and we're also monitoring the chat on YouTube, because we also have a special winner from YouTube, Miss Ashley Taylor. So keep your comments coming on YouTube in the chat. We're listening, we're watching. And I want to remind everyone to do the poll. It's also called poll/vote. It's right beside the Q&A and right beside the chat. Remember to ask your questions too, you know. Right beside the Q&A, the poll/vote, ensure that you're a part of it. Also, if you've won a prize, if you've heard your name, Justin, Annabelle, Ashley, ensure that you send a message to 876-552-4942. We have our officers dropping the number in the chat, and on YouTube, we're listening. You can message that number to collect your prize. Also, we do have a note. All the prizes, they're working hard for it, they're for the students. So if any teachers is answering on behalf of a student, just let us know, because we really want the students to get involved and be engaged. So these prizes are for the students only. Teachers, we're going to have some for you later on, but these are for the students. So if you're answering on behalf, just let us know. Okay. Now, Miss Reina did her presentation on coral reefs. So I wanted to know if you were listening, because there were graphs, pictures, beautiful, beautiful pictures of these things that we need to care, conserve, and restore. And so I have 2 questions. But actually, before that, I have this Digicel $200 credit burning a hole in my pocket. And I can't have holes in my pocket. The money will escape. And so I am going to read the numbers off, and quick fingers, quick prizes. So listen carefully. YouTube, in the chat. Digicel $200 credit. 26160 1800 7172. Right? You didn't get that? Okay, let's do that again. 26160 1800 7172. All right, I'm going to be slower this time. You must get it. 26160 1800 7172. If you've won your $200 credit, please let us know in the chat. Please let us know on YouTube. It's for you to win. Just let us know if you got use the credit you just win to message us and tell us, say you win the credit. My God. All right. And I told you they were burning a hole in my pocket. This is $200 credit for Flow. Yeah, we're equal opportunity winners here. Okay. So for $200 credit on Flow, I have some numbers here. We're going to do this one. Why? Look at my needle glasses. The number is 66514-9134-80424. All right, let's go again. 66514-9134-80424 to get $200 Flow credit. So we did the Digicel, we did the Flow. All right, they can come out of my pocket now and stop burning the hole. Now, our 2 questions from Ms. Rayner's presentation. You have to be listening. Now, I would like you to put 2 things. What are 2 things people can do to help protect coral reefs? What are 2 things people can do to help protect coral reefs? And question 2, what do corals eat and how do they get their food? All right, let me repeat. First question, What are some things people can do to help protect coral reefs? 2 things people can do to help protect coral reefs. And what do corals eat and how do they get their food? Right? Okay. Drop it in the chat. Also drop your question. You're on YouTube. Use your chat feature. We're here to listen to you as we go about the seminar. All right. Great. We are going to do and showcase a short video on the ban on single-use plastics, which was implemented in 2019 and continues today with a new phase, the 4th phase, I believe. And so please sit back. Actually, don't sit back. Sit up, answer the questions, vote in the chat, comment on YouTube. I'm giving you so much homework. I'm giving you so much work. Oh my God, forgive me. And enjoy this video on the ban on single-use plastics.
Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash, no paper, no dash, no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits. Cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect on the reef where they fish them feed. And when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep we
eat.
island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. No dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash, no paper, no dash, no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits. Cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect on the reef where they fish them feed. And when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep we
eat.
island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash, no paper, no dash, no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits. Cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect on the reef where they fish them feed. And when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep we
eat.
island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. No dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica, no dirty up Jamaica. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash, no paper, no dash, no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits. Cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect on the reef where they fish them feed. And when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep we
eat.
island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the beach to the beach, so clean. No dirty up Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash no paper, no dash no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick, and if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits, cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect pan the reef where they fish them feed, and when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep
eat.
our island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty of Jamaica, please don't do it. No dirty of Jamaica, no dirty of Jamaica, no dirty of Jamaica, no dirty of Jamaica. Dirty of Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty of Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash no paper, no dash no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits. Cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect pan the reef where they fish them feed. And when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep we
eat.
island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty of Jamaica, please don't do it. No dirty of Jamaica, no dirty of Jamaica, no dirty of Jamaica, no dirty of Jamaica. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty of Jamaica, please don't do it. Keep we island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty of Jamaica, please don't do it.
No dash no paper, no dash no plastic. Dispose your garbage responsibly. No know how to recycle, learn it quick. And if you drop it, better pick up every piece of it. Plastics last forever, don't forget the bits. Cause when them touch the street, them end up in the sea. Collect pan the reef where they fish them feed. And when you want seafood, I eat your
Keep we
eat.
island clean, so clean. From the peaks to the beach, so clean. No dirty.
Ah, welcome back. That song is very catchy, isn't it? I mean, I would dance for you, but that would be torture, so no. Welcome back from our short break. And we have a couple of winners to announce. It's goodies every single time you come here, not only for the card or the prizes, but the wealth of information. You're getting things straight from the source. Remember to contact Documentation Center, the Shannon O'Connor Documentation Center at NEPA, to get all your informational resources to help guide you in your geography SB or just any type of schoolwork that you need completed. Okay, Miss Raynor did her presentation on coral reefs, and she had 2 questions, and we have our winners. Miss Divine Baker, it's from YouTube. I told you we're monitoring the YouTube chat, right? Ask your questions there and also in the chat feature online. And Aldiana Lewis. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. But Miss Aldiana Anna Lewis, you're also a winner. So Miss Baker, Miss Aldiana Anna Lewis, please send a message to 876-552-4942 to collect your prize. And also the persons that won the credits, I needed to message and say you won the credit. Said it in the chat. My God, say thanks now. Say thanks. Okay. And remember, we do have a grand prize for the student that participates the most, asks the most questions. Please use the chat feature, use it up. Teachers, type on behalf of your students as needed. We want everyone involved. So our next presenter is going to speak on water quality. Mr. Onero Charrington, he's the coordinator, technical services, NEPA testing laboratory. So let me tell you a little thing about Mr. Charrington. So he's a chemist with over 10 years of experience in the agricultural, pharmaceutical, and coating industries. He has expertise in quality management, laboratory management, environmental management, and natural product discovery. Arnera has contributed to the development of companies and was a part of the team that exported the first medicinal cannabis product from Jamaica to Germany. He was a senior quality analyst responsible for monitoring and assessing groundwater, potable water, and water treatment systems. Arnera enjoys nature trails, football and volunteering and painting, and has been a member of the Lions Club International Youth Arm for 7 years. So please welcome Mr. Charrington.
Good evening, teachers, students, fellow colleagues, and guests. as was mentioned, I am Onira Charrington, and today I will be sharing with you a presentation on water quality monitoring. So we all use and interact with water in almost everything we do. Whether we are at the beach, the river, we use water in our household to drink, to cook, and to bathe, right? And the food we consume, the farmers use water to produce these crops. So water is very much involved in all our lives. Now, did you ever stop to wonder, how can we tell if this water is safe? Well, the simple answer to that is water quality monitoring. So today, as we seek to unravel, clarify, and answer the question as to what water quality monitoring is, my presentation will take the overview as shown on screen, and it will look specifically at the Jamaican context, right? So Jamaica is an island with a total square area of approximately 11,000 kilometers square, and it is popularly referred to as the land of wood and water. Now, our waters are loved by almost everyone, and hence tourism is one of our main foreign exchange earner. People love our beaches. Now, the quality of our beaches is largely influenced by the quality of our watersheds. And one may ask, what is a watershed? So a watershed is any area of land that collects and channels rainwater to a stream or a lake. And that sometimes ends up in the ocean, the beaches, and stuff. So the National Environment and Planning Agency is the lead government entity with the responsibility for environmental protection, natural resource management, land use, and spatial planning in Jamaica. And in fulfilling its mandate, the agency conducts routine monitoring on the various fresh and marine water bodies across the island. The data that is collected from these monitoring activities are then collated, analyzed, and used to effect mitigation strategies as well as advise the development of policy and legislations. So as was said earlier, a watershed is any area of land that collects and channels water to a stream or a river. And these areas are categorized as watershed management units. Jamaica has 26 of such units, and they can be easily identified by the major rivers found in each of the 14 parishes, right? And these watersheds, they provide water for domestic, industrial, as well as agricultural use. And the 26 watersheds can be seen on screen on the map. Each of the 14 parishes and the major rivers that run through them. So, what is water quality monitoring? Well, simply, this can be defined as the systematic analysis of the physical, chemical, and biological properties of a body of water. And why do we monitor? Well, we monitor because it is of national as well as international importance, right? Now, at the local level, national level, we seek to achieve the national goal, particular national goal number 13, which can be seen on screen. And the aim of this goal is, our outcome is sustainable management and use of environmental natural resource. Now, this outcome feeds into national goal number 4, which demands that Jamaica has a healthy environment. And this goal, along with many other goals, form part of the National Development Plan, commonly referred to as Vision 2030. And we have been hearing about Vision 2030 for some time now. So this is the National Development Plan, which seeks to bring Jamaica to achieving first world status. So we are a few years away, and we have to ensure that the different aspects that will see the fulfillment of this National Developmental Plan, that these different areas are achieved, or these different momentum or objectives are achieved. But it doesn't stop at the national level. As I said, it is of international significance. And so the National Developmental Plan directly aligns with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, to which Jamaica has been a long-time signatory. So this is all connected both at the local as well as the international level. Now, when we monitor water quality, again, what are some of the things we look for? Some of the physical parameters include solids, salinity. We look at some nutrient or chemical parameters, which entails or covers nitrates and phosphate. And nitrates and phosphate, just to give you a quick overview, these are important and they facilitate plant growth and development. And so, they can be of deleterious effect to the water quality if they exist in a certain amount or a certain quantity. Now, we also look at biological parameters, and one of the main tests that is concentrated on is fecal coliform, right? And this test somewhat suggests the presence of fecal matter in our water. And so, would want to know if there are contamination from sewage as well as other sources containing fecal matter in our water to help determine whether or not it is of high quality and safe. Now, how do we monitor water quality? So the monitoring activities are done through routine as well as non-routine sampling. And since 2018, the agency has focused its monitoring on approximately 10 of the 26 watersheds. And the watersheds of focus can be seen on screen. Just to name a few: Montego River, Martha Brae, Rio Grande, Black River, Hope River, just to name a few. But these are the main areas of focus, or the main watersheds of focus that agency has been looking at or concentrating on, so as to develop a body of data, so as to help with, as was mentioned earlier, policy development, as well as public education, and in all, safety. So we'll be showing a video that details what the sampling activity of water quality monitoring is.
Let's learn the basic water sampling techniques. There are many parameters that can be tested for water quality. Each parameter requires a unique way of collecting samples for testing. Let's take a look at how to collect water samples to be tested for the following parameters: fecal coliform bacteria, biochemical oxygen demand, nitrates, phosphates, suspended and dissolved solids. Water for bacteria testing is always collected first in a clean, sterilized bottle. Be careful not to touch the mouth or inside the cap of the bottle to prevent contamination as you dip once to collect your sample. No rinsing. Fill the bottle only to the shoulder so that the bacteria population can multiply for testing. For biochemical oxygen demand, we ensure that we condition our bottles by rinsing 3 times before collecting the sample. This removes any residue which may have been left behind during the wash process. Carefully and slowly, invert the bottle underwater to reduce bubbles forming during the collection. We want an airtight seal to know exactly how much dissolved oxygen is present in the sample. Try not to collect the sample in turbulent areas, and always remember to fill the bottle all the way to the brim. Our third collection is water for testing nitrates, phosphates, suspended and dissolved solids. Like our biochemical oxygen demand sample, the bottle is rinsed 3 times in the body of water before collection of the final sample. Remember to always discard the rinsed water where it will flow away from the sample point. Here are some additional tips for successful sampling. After collecting your sample for biochemical oxygen demand testing, look to see if there are any bubbles in the bottle. To get rid of these bubbles, gently tap the sides and the mouth of the bottle, and this will cause the bubbles to float out to the top. And for a final tip, always remember, safety first, safety second, and safety third.
All right, so that's our video detailing what the process of sample collection is. So after we have collected these samples, we will then take these samples to the lab to perform analyses on these samples. The analyses or the results obtained from these analyses are then compared with the standard. And standard is very important because there has to be something for you to match the results against so as to know whether or not it is adhering, right? And so the standard that we use is the draft Jamaica National Ambient Water Quality Standard for fresh water. And the different parameters which are looked at, nitrate, phosphate, biochemical oxygen demand, total suspended solid, pH, not fecal coliform, right? So these are some of the parameters, and the different limits associated with these parameters can be seen on screen in the table, right? So after we have collected, analyzed, and compared the results of the samples obtained to the standard, we then look at what is it that this data is saying and what inference can we draw from these analysis and assessment. So I will now go into showing you a few of the parameters that were assessed and the trend analysis obtained for some of our watersheds since 2019 through to 2024. So what we are seeing on screen, right, is that for the watersheds that were analyzed, or the watersheds from which samples were obtained, we can see that 60% or more of the sample points within these watersheds showed to be compliant with the standard for biochemical oxygen demand, right? And this is a good indicator to know that majority of the sampled points are adhering to the limits established in the standard. Now, onto another parameter, which is nitrate. So what the data is saying is that, again here, more than 60% of the sampled points within the various watersheds were in compliance with the standard for nitrate. Similarly, for phosphate, we noted that greater than 60%, right, of all the sampled points within the various watershed show that the results obtained following analysis were adhering to the limits established within the standard. And these information, as was said earlier, they are very important in determining the quality of our water and also the safety of it as well. Now, another parameter that was analyzed over the period is fecal coliform. And what we have noted is that since 2020 through to 2024, 50% of the sampled points within selected watersheds were in compliant with the standard or the guidance used for fecal coliform. Now, what was shown earlier is that the freshwater standard does not prescribe a limit for fecal coliform. However, what we have done is we have used the limits put forward by the World Health Organization and which was also adopted by the Ministry of Health and Wellness as the baseline for fecal coliform acceptable limits. And so from 2020 through to 2024, the data is showing that 50% of the sample points within the different watershed were in compliance with this limit. Prior to 2020, we have seen as low as 20% of the different sample points being compliant with the standard. Also during that year, we observed where for some watershed areas, up to 100%, that means all the sample points done within that watershed or those watershed were in compliance with the limit established by the standard or the guidance that was put forward by the different authorities. The final parameter that we look at is total suspended solid. And this contributes towards turbidity, how clear the water is. And what the data is showing is that from 2019 through to 2024, 50% of selected watershed areas, 50% of all the samples within selected watersheds were in compliance with the standard. And as we have seen throughout the various graphs, there are points when, there are dips or there are highs and there are lows. These things do happen. And whenever there are lows, the approach is to implement different mitigation strategies or corrective actions so as to address whatever would have caused the deviation or the non-compliance. So over the period, the 6-year period, 2019 to 2024, we noted that for the various parameters, most of the sampled areas or most of the sample points within these watersheds were compliant with the standard established. So when we look and compare the results obtained or the data gathered from the Jamaican perspective and compare this to the wider Caribbean, it is seen where some of the limits established or set or outlined within the Jamaica standard are similar to those of other Caribbean islands. However, we have noted vast variations with some of these limits. And this, we noted, was due to two main reasons. One is the difference in the chemical formula used for the different parameters being examined, as well as the incorporation or the inclusion of other variables such as weather, as well as seasonal changes in determining what the limits for these different parameters are. So, as was said earlier, water quality monitoring, it's the systematic analysis of the various parameters, and it can be quite labor intensive. But how do we move forward? Well, the future of water quality undoubtedly will have to incorporate the use of technologies. And so remote monitoring is where water quality monitoring is heading. And remote monitoring simply means having a monitoring system set up out in the field that collects water, perform the tests remotely or virtually, right? Without the involvement of any person, human. It then sends that information to a database, right? And that the results obtained from those in-field monitoring is then compared to the standard, and if it complies or deviates from the limits established within the standard, it will then send or transmit a message, via satellite or cell phone, some wireless transmission to the water quality monitoring specialists or personnel to say, hey, we have observed a deviation. The deviation is for this parameter, and so the different mitigation or corrective actions can be taken to address it to ensure that our water quality is in compliance with the standard, so we can all say that our water is safe. Also, the future of water quality monitoring in Jamaica will also look at different parameters. As you know, there is the emergence of new pollutants. Climate change is one such contributor to this. And so these new parameters will have to be incorporated in the overall water quality monitoring activity so that we can really and truly say that our waters are safe for use for all the activities that we enjoy doing. Now, this ends my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I welcome any question you may have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Charrington. Great. We got a lot of information about water quality in that presentation. Some things I didn't even know, and I'm the public relations officer. New to me. I am glad. And Mr. Charrington has 2 questions for us so that we can win some prizes. Hope you are listening. All right. First question. Name 2 water quality parameters. So, name 2 water quality parameters. Next question. Name 2 watersheds in Jamaica. So, YouTube in the chat, ask your questions. Name 2 watersheds in Jamaica and name 2 water quality parameters. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for your presentation. And we're going to be moving right along to our presentation on mangroves by Mr. Camilo Trench. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Trench. Now, Mr. Trench is a marine biologist and lecturer in marine sciences at the University of the West Indies Discovery Bay Marine Laboratory and has spent over 15 years studying mangrove rehabilitation in Jamaica. He's collaborated with the government, consultancy firms, and local non-governmental organizations to restore and conserve over 50 hectares of mangrove forests. Mr. Trench was the lead consultant in writing Jamaica's National Mangrove and Swamp Forest Management Plan 2023 to 2033. He holds a bachelor's degree in zoology and botany and a master's degree in tropical ecosystems assessment and monitoring from UWI. He completed his PhD in June 2021, titled Hydrological Restoration Approaches for Degraded Mangrove Forests in Jamaica. Let us welcome Mr. Trench as he gives us his presentation on mangroves.
Good morning, good morning. I hope you guys are doing fine. Thanks to the NEPA team for inviting me. and I hope my brief lesson on mangroves will be beneficial to you. All right, so what are mangroves? I wish I was seeing you and you'd be putting up your hands saying, shouting at me, but you'll get a chance to answer on the chat, I'm sure. So as you can see, mangroves are trees or shrubs, and they are adapted to coastal areas, intertidal areas. That means where the land meets the sea. They are found in tropical and subtropical locations, and you should know that tropical means it's warm. Okay, so they are not found at the poles, north or the south pole. They're found in the tropical region, which is close to the equator, where the sun has its greatest influence and intensity. You see a term there that mangroves are halophytes. And if you break it down, those terms mean two things. Halo means salt, okay, and phyte means plant. So they are basically plants that are adapted to living in salty conditions. They don't need salt, to clarify. They don't have to live in salt. It's just that them living in salt gives them a competitive advantage to the other species that may want to outcompete them. So on the coastline, mangroves are king once you have the warm temperature for them to live in. So, regardless of whatever parish you're from, there are mangroves and wetlands found there. And here you see a synopsis of some of the main mangrove ecosystems across Jamaica. We have larger amounts in some parishes than others. For example, Clarendon has one of the largest stands, or the largest stand of mangrove as far as I remember. We have lots of wetlands down in Hanover, Westmoreland area, down in Negril. Other parts of Westmoreland as well, Black River, and the tips of Portland, Manchoneel, little bit in St. Mary, not a lot in St. Mary, fair amount in St. Thomas, and not a lot in St. Ann, because St. Ann has a lot of rocky shore. Trelawney has a fair amount as well. So here you see some of the main mangrove areas across the Jamaican island. And something of note, as we're looking at the island of Jamaica, the recent study shows that Jamaica has over 14,000 hectares of mangroves and swamp forests. So the different species of mangroves as well as swampy trees. It doesn't include the grass type wetlands like the reeds, etc. Now, in terms of the types of mangroves, you'll find a difference if you read different textbooks from across the world. So some textbook will say we have about 60 species. Others will say we have about 54 species. It gets a little confusing because what happens is that in certain countries, and like Australia, what they regard as mangroves, we don't regard as a mangrove in Jamaica. We may call it a mangrove associate. So in the Caribbean region, we can say we have about, well, generally we regard about, most scientists would say about 60 species of mangroves. You see 54 true species there. And there are other species that we call mangrove associates. So true species essentially have all the adaptations that makes them qualify as a mangrove. They have viviparity, and I'll soon break down what that is. You can see two little mangrove seedlings circled with a red circle there. That means that they are actually fully formed before they leave their parent. They have prop roots, and these are the roots that look like little crabs or spiders' legs hanging off of the rhizophore species. That fancy word there, pneumatophores in the middle, that is basically an ear root. And the prefix new, like a pneumatic drill or pneumonia that you can contract, means ear. And the matophores just represents the roots. Some of them have sacrificial leaves that they get rid of the salt. And they have seedlings that are dispersed by water. The mangrove associates don't have all these features. So things like the sea grape and the seaside maho. And there's even a species that we call mangrove here in Jamaica. It's a semi-mangrove called the buttonwood. So we're going to talk about a little bit of the mangrove species or the art ecology a little bit more. So bear in mind, true mangroves have some of these characteristics. They have the viviparous seedlings that are dispersed by water. They have prop roots or pneumatophores which stick up out of the soil to help them to get air. And they have a mechanism for getting rid of salt. Whether it's a sacrificial leaf, or some of them have like a reverse osmosis system in the roots. Now let's talk about the mangroves we have in Jamaica. In Jamaica, we have 3 true species of mangrove. The red mangrove called the Rhizophora mangle. I will soon look at a picture of it. That is the one with the prop roots extending out from it. And if you break the roots, you'll actually see a red dye behind it, so it kind of colors the water red. The black mangrove has a darker colored trunk when it's older, so they call it the black mangrove. It looks kind of blackish. White mangroves are Laguncularia racemosa. The trunk is whitish in color. And then we have a mangrove associate, which is the buttonwood or Conocarpus erectus. It doesn't have these special roots like the red mangrove. You're looking at the picture now, that's a red mangrove. Those are the black mangrove pneumatophores, or breathing roots. And that is a white mangrove, something that sets it apart. It has a round leaf and 2 little bumps at the end and a pink stem. So that is how we distinguish some of these mangroves. The buttonwood now looks a little different, and it's called a buttonwood because the seeds, not seedlings, are actually dispersed by wind, which is another difference between them and the true mangroves. So they look like tiny buttons, they're very circular. Now the red mangrove, and if you look at this picture, it has prop roots and drop roots. So the drop roots come down from the stem, more than likely into the mud or the water, while the prop roots are found in the lower trunk area. Now these, as you can look at these, they serve a very important where they would actually be hiding places for like fishes and crabs, etc. And then they also break down the waves that can threaten us, whether in a normal storm or something as big as a tsunami. And if you heard about the Boxing Day tsunami, these roots help to slow down waves that were 30 or 40 feet high into something that was more manageable. So villages that had mangroves all around them during that Boxing Day tsunami, I think it's 2006, they had very small mortality. Versus areas where they had clear-cutted the mangroves to build cities and towns, they had the full force of the tsunami. So since that tsunami, a lot of persons have shown interest to restore or replant mangroves. All right. The red mangrove roots have a dye in it, or a compound called tannin, and it kind of colors the water red. And so sometimes you're in this mangrove and the water looks brownish or reddish. It doesn't mean it's polluted. It just means that there's a lot of red mangroves that have stayed in the water, that red color. And in some villages, especially poorer villages, persons actually harvest this tannin and they use it to dye things. They might use it to dye their clothing or their bag in some parts of Asia or some parts of Africa, where they're more dependent on the mangroves. I don't know if I said it before, but something you should certainly remember, mangroves have over 200 documented uses. And that is just one of them. The tannin that is found in the root is used as a dye. It's a nursery for fishes. It slows down the storms. It provides food for some persons. Some persons actually steam the seedlings and eat them as a form of food. Some persons feed the leaves to their animals. So mangroves have over 200 different functions across the world. In Jamaica, we have a lot of resources, so we don't use them as heavily. The black mangrove, or Avicennia germinans, you can see the trunk of that tree looks black. And very importantly, it has these breathing roots that stick up out of the ground called pneumatophores. These are like little pencils. They look like little pencils. And these now have tiny holes on them. So even though the forest may be flooded, the pneumatophores are like a snorkel. If you've ever gone snorkeling before with a mask on your face, but you have the tube in the mouth that goes above the water surface. So these pneumatophores are breathing roots. They're like snorkels to this plant. So they are an important part of its arsenal to deal with the flooding and stuff like this. Oh, case in point, there you see somebody with a snorkel, for those who don't know what it looks like. So even though you're submerged, you can still get the air from above the surface of the water. So plants don't have a brain in them, but they have adapted for whatever reason to deal with their environment. So this is just an example of a very unique plant adaptation. And here we see a cross-section of the black mangrove and the roots that extend outwards, but they have the subroots or the breathing roots or the pneumatophores that branch off them. So sometimes a black mangrove will be 10 meters away, and then you see the pneumatophores all the way across to where you are, because they extend all over the forest. The black mangrove also has a unique adaptation as compared to the other species, where some of the other species get rid of the salt through their roots or dripping from the underside of the leaf. But the black mangrove actually accumulates the salt on the surface of the leaf. And if you look at it on a microscope, that's what the salt crystals would look like. And if you're out in the field, you can pick a black mangrove leaf and taste it. It's very salty. All right? So if you're running a boat and you run out of salt and you live near a mangrove forest, you can actually go and pick off some of the leaves and rub it up on the food. You know, it actually works. I've never tried it personally, but it's actually natural salt. And some persons use it for that specifically if they're seasoning their food. But that is in very poor countries. In Jamaica, we have lots of salt and we go to the supermarket and buy it. But it's another problem with that though. If it's a dry day and it has a lot of salt crystals on the leaf, sometimes the leaves will look burned up or torn up because the salt actually burns the leaf. Can you imagine submerging yourself with salt? It's going to dehydrate you. So you can do that to almost any living thing. The white mangrove also has breeding roots, but the white mangrove breeding roots are a little shorter. So they are called knob roots, not pneumatophores or breeding roots. They are short and rounded. And at the base of the leaves of the white mangrove, they have two bumps, or extraflora nectaries. They use it to actually attract ants and other insects, which they trick them into helping them to do pollination. So they have a symbiotic relationship with many insects, like the ants, certain species of ants. And I think I have a picture of the white mangrove leaf with the nectaries. So here you can see it has a pink stem and two little nectaries at the base, which produce small amounts of nectar, and the ants come and gobble it up and help to spread, help with the pollination process. Now the white mangrove gets rid of the salt from the underside of the leaf. So more than likely you won't see the salt crystals. They tend to drip out, being undetected. Now the buttonwood, some persons call it a mangrove, some persons do not. We regard it as a mangrove here in Jamaica because anywhere that buttonwoods are, then you can say there are wetlands there, and it's a part of the wetland ecosystem. They do not show the viviparity. Remember, viviparity or being viviparous, that means that you have your seedlings already formed before it leaves the parent. So that's what's one adaptation that the button mangrove misses that the other mangroves do have. And if I go back to the red mangrove propagule, it's pointed and it actually falls off the tree, can stick in some sand or mud and keep growing. But the buttonwood, they are blown away by wind and they do not germinate in salt water. But I guess for management purposes, we still regard them as a mangrove, even though they are semi-mangrove in reality. And they do not have the proper root system to fight against, to combat the wave energy. Now, because of their rooting adaptations and because of their seedling size, which I won't get into it, obviously the larger ones, the ones with larger and more robust roots, are actually found closer to the intertidal zone. So the red mangrove, if you look at the Caribbean mangrove zonation, the red mangrove almost always is on the shoreline because it has larger seedlings and it has a larger root system that can more stand up to the wave energy. The black mangrove and white mangrove are normally a little further back. The black mangrove a little further back because it has longer breathing roots. As I said, they look like pencils, while the white mangrove has a shorter breathing root. So the black mangrove can actually take higher levels of flooding. And the buttonwood normally found further back because it doesn't germinate in salt water and it's actually more of a dry species. You'll find isolated ones in like little mounds, etc. But if the tide is coming in and out and very deep, it will basically kill the buttonwoods. They do not have the root adaptations. And as you can see, mangroves, coral reef, and seagrasses, they work together. So the coral reef actually breaks the waves, and then the mangroves reduces them further. And coming from land to sea, the mangrove is filtration. So the mangroves traps the bottles and the bags, and in some cases the nutrients, Like there are some parts of Jamaica, like out in Helsha and in Montego Bay, where the water treatment facilities, they actually send the partially treated water through the mangroves, and the mangrove actually help to clean up the nutrients out of it. So wetlands are very effective in cleaning up nutrients, right? And actually, for my PhD, I did a comparison of an area with nutrients, high nutrients, versus an area that had low nutrients. And the area with high nutrients actually had the mangroves grow 4 times faster than the area with low nutrients. So they actually soak up a lot of sewage and other waste. Not that we should be discharging them into the sea, but it does happen from time to time. And when it does, we're very happy to have mangroves on the shoreline. So if you ever have a decision to make in the future, students, where you have to choose between cutting down mangroves and keeping them, you should certainly keep them because they are so beneficial. And you'll remember how many uses I said they have, about 200 different uses. So what are some of the functions of mangroves? They have ecological functions. They are nursery area and habitat for many species. Even animals like the barracuda, when they are young, they go into the mangrove area and the seagrass area to hide. Because when they are young, they don't have these large teeth, and they are prey themselves to fish. So they camouflage, and when they are young, they actually have a greenish color. And you see, they have greenish color with stripes. So they are camouflaging in the mangrove and the seagrass. Many species of shark, like the lemon shark, go into the mangrove to have their babies because when they are young, they do not have the large teeth to fend for themselves. So we have sponges on the roots, we have oysters, we have many different things like those ones are called ascidians, and these are little sea squares that have anti-cancer properties. We have oysters that persons eat or the fishes eat. We have crabs that we may eat or the birds eat. And of course, they have the birds there. For example, there's a key in Kingston called Refuge Key, and we have more birds there because it's completely surrounded by water. So no mongoose can get there, and mongoose are a major threat to birds. And rats get there, but they normally just travel on a little floating rock or something like that. But because these birds know that no big predators are there, they live there in harmony and away from people and rats. As I said earlier, they are filters, so they can be filters for nutrients, for fertilizers, sewage, etc. They capture a lot of carbon and they lock it in the soil. In fact, it's very topical right now. So developers are trying to conserve mangroves to get what they call carbon credits, because by trapping the mangrove carbon in the soil, you're reducing that carbon from being released in the atmosphere. And you should know from your other classes that more carbon in the atmosphere means a greater hole in the ozone layer, and that means more sunlight coming into us. And God knows we have enough sunlight nowadays. And of course, it helps to maintain water quality by sediment stabilization. It actually builds land as the crop roots grow out once they get enough sediment to grow on. In fact, I did a report for an agency that was looking to do a development in a part in St. Anne. And we looked at the satellite images. We saw that the land was actually growing because so many mangroves are there and a river is close by. So the river carries down the nutrients, and the mangrove roots trap the nutrients, and as they grow, more and more nutrients, and they keep growing out further to sea. They offer coastal protection for us, and if you look at this cartoon on the right, it shows Uncle Rufus cutting down the mangroves that he can get a sea view, and 5 years later when the mangroves are gone, and a storm comes in, then there goes his house, and there goes him running from the sea. So the mangroves should be kept on the shoreline. They're also important for the windbreak. And if you're in Kingston, you should know that the Kingston Harbor earns a lot of money for Jamaica. Seventh deepest natural harbor in the world. And in some years, I don't know if you know this, in some years, transshipment, what we do in Jamaica, we are a middle destination for many shipping destinations across the Caribbean. Transshipment actually earns more money than tourism in some years. Because transshipment spends less money. They have the wharf down there, they have the gantry trains to bring them. They hire 200 people versus tourism that we have to decorate every street side, and we have to maintain so much and insurance liabilities and all of that. So transshipment, which is facilitated by our Kingston Harbor, which is facilitated by the mangroves and sand dune there, is one of our major foreign exchange earners for Jamaica. Of course, socio-economic benefits, people like to go there, look at it, bird watching, go to crab bush. I use it as a teaching tool. There you see a boardwalk where persons are walking through the mangrove to get the experience. It's a windbreak, it gives you a cleaner environment. It's just natural and a good thing to look at. For example, Swamp Safari in St. Elizabeth, they earn millions of dollars down there. And it's a mangrove tour. You're looking at the crocodiles there and all of that. And then there's another mangrove tour in Jamaica that actually earns more money than that. It's actually one of the murkiest, muddy little areas you can find in Jamaica, down in Falmouth, called the Luminous Lagoon, the Glistening Waters. And if you have never done it, it's one of like 7 luminous sites, one of 6 in the Caribbean. Very magnificent to see. And what this is facilitated by the mangroves being around it and setting these conditions to make it nice. So for example, there's a large hotel on the other side of that, but NEPA did not allow that developer to develop the side to the Luminous Lagoon because the mangroves there have to stay intact. And they had to just accept that even though it's their land, they cannot develop it because it's that important. Of course, there are many threats. Number one threat is development and humans and what we do. Whether it's a hotel or a house, we cut them down for fish pots, for lumber. We excavate them and make fish ponds and shrimp ponds. And of course, there are natural threats as well. Parishes like Trelawney have lost over 200 hectares of mangrove in a 10-year period because Ochios was so developed and Montego Bay so developed. Trelawney was in the middle there and persons wanted to build more hotels. So Trelawney has lost a lot of mangroves comparatively in the last couple of years. And of course, the government is trying to slow this down, but sometimes they have land developers and they insist to do the development, even though they'll pay the price to do it. There are a lot of stringent regulations they have to jump through, but if you're a big developer, you'd spend the money to make the money in the future. But the government is definitely getting more strict on them. So this is a picture of the Palisados, and Refuge Key is the key I was telling you about that the birds live. It has nearly 30% of the it had 30% forest loss over the years because plastics were gathering on the shoreline. And that's a picture of Refuge Key in 2017. Now what the UE team did, we went and we cleaned up the key with funding from KFTL, through the insistence of NEPA, of course. So we cleaned the plastics and other things from the shoreline, and we opened up some of the channels because salt water was getting into the key, but not going out. So it was getting very, very salty. And the mangroves live in a maximum salinity of about 45 parts per thousand. The salt water over there was getting to 60 and 70 parts per thousand, very salty. So after we put a solid waste barrier around it and remove some of these things, a lot of things were there. Tires and refrigerators and sofa and anything you imagine was over there. And I think we removed something like 30 truckloads of garbage just from that one key. The Port Royal Marine Lab team led that. And here are some of the images of the garbage that was on the key. Where does this garbage come from? It comes from the gullies in Kingston. So if you are one of these irresponsible persons throwing your garbage in the gully, you need to think twice because you're damaging your own future. And those are the breathing roots of the pneumatophores that are tangled in garbage. Lots of garbage. I don't have any post-monitoring pictures, but it certainly had an improvement in the amount of seedlings growing there. So as you can see, and as I said, mangroves are covered under the Ramsar Convention. That is showing you some of the Ramsar sites across the world. That is not the mangrove locations purely. And we can restore mangroves. That's a picture of a site that NEPA did, and I advised them on it. So they actually restored a drainage area that was blocked. And after 24 months, you can actually see the mangroves coming back in the area. They had to fence it from goats as well, because the mangroves love to eat the young goats. The goats love to eat the, what did I say? The goats love to eat the young mangroves. So they had to fence them from the goats there, right? Not the other way around. And the mangroves would eat out the seedlings that they planted. So they had to put in a fence. They had to be adaptive in what they did, all right? We have mangrove nurseries at our marine labs, and we establish them in case persons need the seedlings for restoration. But not all the restoration work actually needs seedlings. Sometimes you just need to open up back a drainage canal. And that is the end of my presentation. I hope the timing was good. And I'm sure you guys will do well on your exams. And I wish you all the luck, and I hope you learned a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Trench. A lot of work being done in mangrove restoration, not only at NEPA, but island-wide. We have experts in their fields that are passionate about improving Jamaica's environment. Never let it be said that we don't collaborate or have passionate people. They're there. The environment needs its champions. Thank you, Mr. Trench. And I hope you learned from that presentation. Remember, copies of the presentations will be sent to individuals and the schools that have registered. So go on NEPA Jamaica's social media pages, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, to sign up at the link so you can have access. And also to call the NEPA Documentation Center to find out even more information that can be helpful in your studies. Now we have two winners from Mr. Charrington's presentation on water quality. Our two winners, Miss Olivia Bispot, sorry if I mispronounced her name, Miss Olivia Bispot and Miss Alicia Downer. You are your two winners for the questions on water quality, Miss Downer and Miss Bispot. You can message 876-552-4942 to claim your prize. And I got credit again. It's Santa Claus. December was just December a while ago, and now I have some in February. I have two phone cards, $200 credit from Flow and $200 from Digicel. I would like the first two persons to ask questions in the Q&A chat part. I want you to engage, because I'm sure you've been listening to the presentations all along and learning some key things or been inspired. So the first two persons to ask a question in the Q&A chat will receive a $200 credit. One person will receive the Flow credit. One person will receive the Digicel credit. Two questions in the chat, the first two. Okay. Now we're going to move on to our questions from Mr. Trench. He had some questions for us based on the presentation he had, the types of mangroves, the restoration efforts, some of the things that we need to know as a small island developing state. Now, the first question is, mangroves have many functions. How many different uses or importance do scientists estimate that mangroves serve? Right? So, how many different uses do mangroves serve? And two, what is the proper name for the adapted roots that the black mangroves uses to get air into its tree system? So, listen closely. Mangroves have many functions. How many different uses do the mangroves serve? And what's a proper name for the adapted roots that the black mangrove uses to get air into the tree's systems? Quick fingers, quick answers. Let us know there, and we are going to announce the winners after that. Remember the grand prize I told you about? The student who participates the most, asks most questions, comments. We are monitoring the chat, so ensure that you throw your hat in. Now we're going to move on to our last presenter, who's going to present on geography SBA tips. Now you're going to need this if you really want to use all of this information you've gotten. Miss Raynor on the coral reef, Mr. Charrington on water quality, Mr. Trent on mangroves, Mr. Thaxter on air quality, and Ms. Thomas on accessing NEPA's resources. You wouldn't want to put all of those things together to create your SBAs. If you haven't started already, please start. Don't stress out your teachers, please start. But our next presenter, Mrs. Kenisha Brown Russell, is going to help you put all of those things together with her tips. Now, Mrs. Brown Russell has fulfilled many duties in the academic discipline of geography. She's currently the head of department of geography and dean of academic studies at Camperdown High, where she's been teaching for over 17 years. She's also the president of the Geography Teachers Association and supervisor of the Cape SBAs for CSEC. Over the years, Mrs. Russell has worked assiduously to improve the achievements of students in geography at both the CSEC and the Cape level. And so her tips will be very useful in how you set in your SBA, what types of information you need. And so we are going to access her presentation online. She is virtual when she is ready to go to help you figure out how you put those elements together. All right? So we're going to hand off digitally to Mrs. Kenisha Brown Russell.
We can just call in the experts from NEPA and actually have them share with the students as it relates to the coral reefs and the mangroves, because these topics are big topics in the syllabus. All right, now for the next 30 minutes, we are going to go ahead and, look at the geography school-based assessment. And I know we may have different students online. We may have the grade 10s who may not have started it. And we have the grade 11s who should be. I mean, I heard the moderator say that please start, but we're hoping at this time, we just don't want them to start. We want them to be almost finished. So as they near the completion of the SBA, I just want to present to them, tips that they should have included in the SBA, information relating to the layout, and just general information that will have them scoring the best grade there is. I know when it comes on to the SBA, some of our students actually see this as work, but it is definitely that section or that component of the syllabus that they can leverage. And by that, I mean, this is a section that they're capable of actually getting the highest marks, because they have just about a year to complete the SBA, and that is to collect the data and go ahead and produce a SBA. So they just have a year, they have a year to complete, and it's definitely that component of the exams that they're able to get full marks. I know the teachers who are online want to give their students full marks, and I'm hoping that the presentation will have us getting as close as possible to that maximum marks. Now, as it relates to the SBA, we embark upon the different topics for several reasons. We want you to get knowledge of the SBA, knowledge of the topic itself, and a lot of times we are in the classroom and things don't get real to us until we go out and we collect our own data. So the SBA actually gives us that opportunity to get a little bit more intimate with the information that you would have learned in the classroom. Secondly, it taps into our critical thinking skills, because here we are, we have to go out, collect data, And thereafter, we need to synthesize, break down the information, and make some sense of it. So we are actually able to go out, identify and define problems out there in the field, and draw conclusions with reference to the problem. Also, it utilizes our social and research skills. And for those persons who are considering higher level education, research skills definitely needed, because you are going to be going out there to produce your own studies that you may just publish at some point in time. The SBA gives you an opportunity to work independently and in a group. Group work, always very important. So the SBA takes full advantage of that. And last but not least, the SBA allows us to have a balanced perspective of the research outcomes. So we wanted to go out in the field, get the information, and you have the confidence to make your own opinions based on your findings. And you get the opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the different findings. And from that, you are actually able to make your opinions, and these opinions may differ from what was expected. You can put that in your SBA. Not everything that you find in the field may match up to what you saw in the textbook or you read in the textbook, but the SBA allows you to give those varied responses. Now, what is your target for the SBA? And I know all the students who are online, especially the grade 11, should know by now that the SBA total is 40 marks, and we want everybody to get as close as possible to that 40 marks, if not 40 marks. You are completing a study of 1,000 words, not a lot, because if we take into consideration all the different components of the SBA, then very quickly you get to 1,000 words. So we have to ensure that we do what we are supposed to do with the different components such that we are not over the word limit. All right, now as it relates to the SBA, there are several different components, and like any project, we have the table of content, which is 1 mark. We have the introduction, that is out of 2 marks. We have our aim, that's 2 marks. We have the location of the study area, which is 4 marks. We have a big chunk of the marks that is given over to presenting the data that you went out and collect, analyzing it, and discussing it. So all of 22 marks is for that section. So that is more than half of what the SBA is total. Then we have the conclusion. Thereafter, we have our bibliography, which is 1 mark, and our appendix. Now, for the purpose of the presentation and in the interest of time, I am going to focus on some key areas. And these areas are, the sections that might give us a little bit of problem, even though it may present itself as being easy. But oftentimes we find that the correct thing is not done. And these sections relate to the introduction, as we're seeing highlighted on the screen, the location of the study area, the presentation, analysis, and discussion of data. So all of 3 things in one section here. And as I said before, that is 22 marks, whole heap of marks. So we have to pay special attention to this section. Then we have our conclusion. Now, the other areas are very important. However, I'm going to focus a little bit more on these sections so that we have the correct thing in our projects. Now, before I actually delve into the different sections of the SBA, I just want to bring a little bit of attention to the selection of our topics. And if it is that we have actually started the SBA, I just want you to go back and look to see if the topic that was selected was actually on the syllabus. Now, that's the first thing the examiners are looking for when they are marking that SBA is the topic aligned with the syllabus. Next, you want to ensure that the SBA actually has some amount of primary data collected. So you actually went out in the field and you collected information, whether it be from a questionnaire that we consider to be a primary source of data collection, interviews, you go out on the beach and you collect your own information as it relates to the wave types, the profile of the beach, or you go into an area to look at mass movement. So you want to ensure that whatever the topic is, you were able to collect primary data. And from that, you are able to write your research question. And the research question is what actually gives you your aim. Now, the syllabus is quite wide, and the topic that you may have selected could have spanned from any of the sections of the syllabus, be it from the human section or the physical aspect of the syllabus. And this may include coastal and river processes and features, mass movement. We can look at population, and quite a bit can be done there as it relates to changes in population and the use of population pyramids to actually illustrate the changes that have taken place in a particular area. And that's very important. Whatever the topic that we choose, it must be in reference to a particular location. So you don't want to be looking at data for an entire parish or an entire geographical area. You want to narrow it down such that you are actually able to get a little bit more intimate with the information that you will be collecting out in the field. Other topics that comes from the human section of the syllabus relates to industrial location. So here now you may be looking at the locational factors influencing industries, and the syllabus have actually given us quite a bit of area that we can actually choose from, and be it fishing, forestry, bauxite, food processing. And we have quite a number of industries in Jamaica that we can actually draw on in order to collect data. We can also look at the benefits and problems associated with these industries. And another section that tends to be very popular in terms of the SBAs tend to be hazards, and that relates to the responses of individuals to different hazards. Now, I will touch on hazards as well as an area sometimes that may be a little bit problematic in terms of the collection of primary data, because when it comes on to specific hazards such as flooding, time is a very important factor, and it may not always be possible to assess flooding at the time it actually took place due to safety reasons. And if time lapses, so you're actually going out now to collect data on flooding 2 or 3 days after an area is impacted, then it may be that the flood waters would have been receded and things would have changed, and as such you would not be able to collect as much information as you would need. So sometimes topics like this can pose a problem. Another area of concern too is pollution. And as I listen to the presenters' information as it relates to going out in the field and testing as it relates to different pollutants in different areas, it confirms my information here as it relates to, the topic being a bit problematic, because this is something that requires a bit of expertise in the field. So the NEPA team, the teachers have to draw on your expertise here as it relates to collecting information as it relates to pollution. So if it is that you are looking at pollution on a river or coast or mangroves or coral reefs in a particular area, quite a bit of expert knowledge is required. And this may include the use of a quadrat, which the scope of the CSEC syllabus may not lend itself to. Classification of the pollutants. So it's not just going out there to say that, okay, there are pots, there is garbage as it relates to boxes and stuff. There are different modes of classification that are used as it relates to these pollutants. And it's very important that we actually look at the types as well as the amount in order to be able to classify the areas being polluted or having an impact from pollution. The information that you may need as well may require further analysis and testing. And all this may be actually out of the scope of the students. But if it is that we are calling on the NEPA team to assist, then we can actually go ahead and produce a good study. But be reminded that this particular topic lends itself to a bit more advanced methodologies that should be applied so that we actually get the necessary information to put together a sound project. Now, after looking at, the areas in the syllabus that we want to undertake, one of the first things that we need to do, and it's something that we ought to do before we actually go out in the field, and that is to formulate an aim. Now, the aim is what actually guides your research. So everything that you do actually it's surrounded, or it's surrounding the aim. So for the purpose of the SBA, we want to ensure that there's at least one aim which clearly defines and focuses the study. It can be stated as a direct or an implicit question. And of course, it must be based on the syllabus, and it allows for the collection of primary data. The aim, it must be specific. So if there are grade 11s online, I want you to look back at your aim to check if your aim includes actionable descriptive terms. And those terms we're actually talking about to identify, to describe, to discuss, to observe, to compare, to contrast. So all of these are things that you are going to be doing, and they're quite specific. Now, there are some terms that we want to, to keep clear of. We really don't want to use it because at times it may not be as specific and it doesn't say exactly what you're going to be doing. And this includes to investigate, to explore. So we want you to be as descriptive as possible as it relates to your aim, to identify. And from that, we know exactly what you're going to be doing, to describe, to discuss, to observe. All right, so the aim that you choose is very important. Now, last but not least, within that aim, you must be stating the study area. And that study area ought to be a small enough area that allows for the collection of data. So within your aim, ensure that the study area is there, and that study area should include the name of the area, the parish, and of course your country. All right, so let's take a look at some of the aims that are practical. It allows for data collection, and it's well stated. So if you look at the screen there, you are seeing to identify and discuss the main factors influencing the location of the Grace Kennedy processing factory in Denby, Clarendon, Jamaica. So if you look at that aim, it satisfies all the requirements. So here we have a statement, and we have those actionable verbs that will actually help us to focus the SBA, to identify and to discuss. And most importantly, we have stated our study area. We have given the name of the area as well as the country. Let's look on another one to analyze the effectiveness of community members' response to flooding in Taylor's Land, St. Thomas, Jamaica. Again, all the different criteria satisfied. We have the verb there, we have the area, and we have the territory. And another one taken from the physical aspect of the syllabus, and that's to identify and describe the coastal features formed along the White Horses coastline in St. Thomas, Jamaica. All right, so when we look at those aims, they all satisfy the criteria. And if you have something like this, and then of course you are getting your 2 marks. The table of contents, definitely we know that every project is supposed to have a table of contents that outline the different sections of the SBA. But oftentimes we tend to rush this section, and the 1 mark that is allotted for the table of contents, we tend not to get it because we may not include the page numbers. So when we look at the table of content, it's looking like this without the page numbers there, or we have confused the pages for the different sections of the SBA. So you're going to check to ensure that the introduction matches up with the correct page. And a lot of times we may make several changes to the SBA. We will produce different drafts. And as a result of that, the page numbers will shift. So you have to ensure that you remember to go back and make adjustments to the table of contents. My biggest tip with the table of contents is that you don't do it until you are totally finished. So once the SBA is finished and you have put together everything, then you go ahead and you create your table of contents. All right, now the area of focus that I did say that I'm going to look at, and that's the introduction. So this is one of the first sections of the SBA. And here we are looking at an example, and the example here relates to the aim to determine and explain the type and influence of waves along the White Horses coastline in St. Thomas, Jamaica. Now, in this introduction, there are three main things that are jumping out, and it's important to have it so that we can get the full 2 marks that is allocated to this section. So one, we want to write an introduction that gives a clear overview of the study, because after all, this is what an introduction is. You are introducing the project and you want to state exactly what you're going to be doing. Thereafter, you have to provide some sort of reason or justification as to why you are selecting this study. Now, most of our studies is born out of a particular problem. So you go out in the field and you see that erosion is taking place in a particular area. And now you set out to look at why is it that the rate of erosion is so great in this area. So you are providing some sort of justification as to the selection of the topic. Very important. And if it is that you don't have this in the introduction, then you won't get the full marks. And of course, your introduction, you must narrow the research to the area of study. So we don't want it to be talking about waves in general. We don't want it to be talking about the location in general, because oftentimes we tend to do that. So we spend a lot of time talking about the topic itself. We spend a lot of time talking about the location, but we are not tying the two. We're not narrowing the research to say that, okay, this topic was selected in this location because of so and so. So if we actually read the example that we have on the script, on the screen here, then we would have this study was chosen to determine how a coastal location such as White Horses is impacted by wave energy. This study will assess the type of waves and how it affects the coastline. So clearly, this is a shoreline that is heavily impacted by wave energy. And the study now sets out to look at exactly why is this area so heavily impacted. So you're looking at the types of waves that have led to the development of coastal features. So once again, we want to ensure that you get that 2 marks for the introduction. So be as clear as you can in providing some sort of justification as to why you are doing the study. Now, one of the things that we tend to do in an introduction is to define terms. We really don't want it to waste time to do that at all. And if you do, you would not be getting the maximum marks. So don't waste the time to define what is a wave, or you are defining what is a river, or you're defining what is pollution or what is a hazard. You are going right ahead to tell us what SBA is about and give a reason as to why you actually selected that topic. All right, why is it of interest to you, or why is it of interest? What has been happening in that location, why you have set out to do a study in that area? Now, we've gone over to the what I call the drawing part of the SBA. And this is where we get to demonstrate our skills as it relates to drawing maps. Now, the SBA requires 2 maps. Map 1, which is our territory map or map of the country that is showing your study area. And map 2 is your site map. So map 2 is a zoomed in version of map 1. So for that map one, what do we want? We want the map to be the entire country, or it can be a significant portion of the country, a large part of it. And what we want that map to do is to highlight the location of study first and foremost. So you have to put on the map some sort of highlight to show that this is where you are actually undertaking the study. And on that map, we want you to put some sort of reference point. So you would have labeled up your maps, but on the map, we want you to put on reference points that are popular, that you know of, so that we are able to get the relative location of your study area to that reference point. Now, the reference point may include national airports, so be it Norman Manley International Airport or Sangsters International Airport. These are popular points that can be used as reference, or you can put on at the mountain peak. And in this case, we can put on Blue Mountain Peak, since we know that that's the highest point in Jamaica, and we want to look at where is our study area in reference to the Blue Mountain. And or you actually can put on the capital city of the country. So that's your site map. So let's go ahead and look at a site map. Now, the site map, of course, you know that a map is not complete unless it has your title, your key, your scale, your border, your compass. Now, for the site map, as I said, it's the zoomed version of the country map. And for this map, the scale, of course, has to be larger so that you're able to see the features on the map. And those features include the roads, any noteworthy features such as vegetation, rivers, and other popular points within the location. So the map for this, for the site tends to be as large as 1 to 25,000 or 1 to 10,000, so that you're able to adequately display all the features within the study area as well as in the immediate environs. All right, now we're gonna look on some examples of the maps. All right, so this is an example of map one. And with this map, it's fairly neat, but one of the mistakes that we tend to make is that the map tend not to have on those reference points that are very important. So if we look at the map here, those reference points that we spoke of as it relates to either an international airport or the capital city of the country, or a reference point such as a mountain, those were missing from the map here. And as a result, the map would not have been able to get the full 2 marks. So it's nicely drawn, but until those reference points are included on the map, you won't be able to capitalize on this section. So look back on your map again and ensure that the reference points that you have is on it, as well as your study area. Here is another map, and again, nicely drawn. And we have the different parishes nicely labeled on the map, but then again, there are no reference points included. So we just want to ensure that the map that we have, we actually have the reference points here. So on this map, there are more than 1 reference points included. You can choose to include 1 or 2, but here there's the inclusion of the Blue Mountain Peak. There's the inclusion of the Norman Manley International Airport, and we have the study area here. So from this map, we're able to accurately locate where the study area is in reference to the airport or Blue Mountain Peak. And then, of course, we ensure that we have all the mapping conventions. So the title, it must be properly titled, Map of Jamaica highlighting area of study, and that area of study here is the Wagwater St. Mary, Jamaica. We ensure that the map is bordered. So we have our border surrounding the map here. We ensure that we have a scale, and when we look at the scale, we realize that the scale is quite large because we are representing the entire country. And lastly, we ensure that we have a legend that includes that includes everything that is placed on the map. And those symbols must match up to what was placed on the map itself. All right, so we can go ahead and include another color, different shade of the color, different from what was placed on the map. Now, here's another example of a map that is nicely drawn. However, the study area here is Discovery Bay. But on the map itself, we have nothing in the key that signals or that states that this is the study area. So it's highlighted here to say Discovery Bay, but in the key itself, we must make mention of the fact that this is the study area. So when we look in the key, we're not so sure where it's studied just by looking at the map. So we will have to ensure that that is included in the key. Now we're going to go ahead now and look at the site maps. And as I said, the site maps are zoomed in version of map 1. So when we look at this map, we are now able to see the exact site or the location of study here. And we ensure that it's highlighted in the key over here. We want to ensure that our roads are included on the map because these are our access points. This is what we're using in order to get to the site. So we're making sure that it's included on the map. Also too, we ensure that we have other notable features there. And on this map, we have the river as well as the land use within the area, the type of the cultivation as well as the vegetated area in the north here. And again, we ensure that all mapping conventions are applied. So we ensure that we have the key over here, the scale, the title, and we have our border. Here's another map, nicely done. Again, the title is nicely written at the top. We have all our roads nicely labeled. We have the study area specified again. So it's nicely highlighted over here. And we ensure that different areas on the map are labeled with the correct names. All right, I don't think I made mention of our compass here, but again, I did say all the mapping conventions should be applied to the map. So we also ensure that our compass is included on the map. And if we go ahead and do all of that, then we would have gotten our 4 full marks. All right, now we're actually going to go ahead and look now at the section that takes up quite a bit of the SBA. So this is the money now of the SBA, the big chunk, the 22 marks that we are talking about. Now, this section is our presentation of data. And within the presentation of data, you're doing quite a bit of things. You are including illustrations that you would have drawn or developed with the use of the computer, and as well as you are including your description of findings. And that has to do with what you went out in the field and collect. So within the presentation of data, you are allowed to include different illustrations, and the SBA should include at least 2 types. And those illustrations we refer to are the graphs, the pie charts, the tables, the photographs, the sketches. So when you look in your SBA, you must ensure that you have at least 2 types that are included. Now, very importantly, we don't want you to just include the illustrations in the SBA. We want to ensure that all the illustrations that you have are nicely labeled, and where necessary, they're well annotated. So again, you need to look back at all the illustrations and ensure that all the necessary annotations and labelings are done. Now, those pie charts, line graphs, bar graphs, and histograms, they must have a title. Oftentimes, we tend to leave off the title. The axes must be labeled, and we must ensure that a key is actually included when we actually produce those bar graphs and histograms. Now, Very important, photographs and diagrams that are copied from secondary sources such as the internet or the textbooks. They're not your own. And we really don't want you to include these in the SBA because you would not be getting marks from them. So the illustrations that we want are the ones that you produce with the data that you collected. So steer clear of the ones that are in the textbook or the ones that you actually got from the internet. The illustrations, very, very importantly, must be integrated with the information that you collected. Now, in doing so, reference must be made to all the illustrations that you have. So in the body of the SBA, you must say figure 1 shows so and so, figure 2 shows. And if there are 10 illustrations included in the SBA, we must be seeing reference for all 10. Otherwise, we're going to ignore it. So you must be making some sort of invitation for us to look at the SBA. So let us go ahead and look at what this looks like in the presentation of data. So here we have a page of the presentation of data. And as we said, the photographs must be annotated. So we can't just put the photographs in the SBA. The photographs, they don't speak for themselves. We have to ensure that we make some sort of annotations. So we ensure that we apply or arrows to show exactly what we're making reference to. And after annotation, we make certain that there is some sort of reference at the bottom or at the top of the illustration. So here we have plate 2 and plates referring to the photographs that we have in the SBA. So we have plate 2 showing features of the river at site 1. Now, in the presentation of the data that you have, or in the write-up or the description of the findings, you make certain that there is some reference to plate 2. So here we have in brackets C plate 2 as it relates to the river valley. So you're making certain that everywhere that you actually include those illustrations on the same page, preferably, you will actually make reference to those illustrations. We don't really want you to put the illustrations too far away from where you actually made a reference. All right, now we're gonna look on some illustrations that we tend to produce. However, some of them are not properly labeled or titled. Now, we tend to have pie charts at times where we actually have a nicely drawn pie chart or nicely produced pie chart. However, the pie itself is not showing the proportion of whatever it is that you're displaying. So here on the screen, we have a nice pie chart, but there are no percentages as it relates to the distribution of material along the coast. So we have to make certain that our pie charts have on those percentages. Otherwise, it means nothing. So make sure you have on your 45%, 22% as it relates to the different sectors of the pie. Sometimes we tend to use these pie charts in a way that doesn't really make much sense. So I'll give you an example as it relates to the human topics. You know, we oftentimes use the questionnaire to actually collect information. And for some responses, we may have all the respondents checking yes or checking no. And from that, we tend to produce a pie chart. Now, clearly, the entire population that you sampled would have checked yes or no. We need not represent that on a pie because we have to remember what a pie chart represents. It represents different sectors of something. And if it is that we go out in the field and we're getting one response, then we need not use a pie chart in order to illustrate that. You just need to go ahead and describe the findings. 100% of the persons that were interviewed or sampled said yes. All right, so we don't need to waste our illustrations on responses like that, where we have everybody saying the same thing. The pie chart is actually used to show variation. We have here a histogram. And again, we want to ensure that all the histograms and the bar graphs that we have in the study, they're properly titled. The axes are labeled. Oftentimes we tend to leave off the axes for the different graphs. So we generate it, we put in our data, but the axes are not correctly labeled, or they're not labeled at all. So ensure that on our Y and our X axis, we have the proper labeling there. And again, ensure that we have the reference, figure 3, figure 1 showing so and so. As I said before, a lot of times we get photographs, they're placed in the SBA. So beautiful photographs that captures the area. But again, they're not labeled, they're not annotated. So we have to go ahead and make some sense of the photographs that we went out in the field and captured by labeling it. So we must point to whatever it is that we are describing in the presentation of data. So here we have the cliff, we're showing the destructive wave, we're showing the wave cut platform, and we're doing all of that by the use of arrows and proper annotations to point to exactly what we would be describing. Again, as I said, this is an example of a photograph or a diagram that was actually copied from secondary sources. We don't want you to include this. You won't be getting any marks. We want you to go ahead and produce your own. So if it is that you want to sketch from the photograph, then go ahead and do that. But do not copy diagrams from the internet or take them out of your textbook. Now, remember I said that the presentation of data analysis and discussion includes a lot of things. So not only are you placing illustrations in this section, you're also providing explanation of the data that you collected. And from that explanation, we wanted to ensure that you properly synthesize the information. You look at any trends in the data that you collected. You look at any patterns, and from that, you are writing this up explicitly in the presentation, analysis, and discussion. Within that section as well, you are also discussing the information that you have. And by doing so, you may make reference to secondary sources, such as your textbooks, such as the internet. Now, when you do that, you're going to make certain that you make reference to it in the body of the presentation of data. So for that analysis of data, you have to ensure that the points that you have presented in the study, they are well developed, well sequenced. So we don't want it to jumble everything all in one. Properly lay out your points by paragraphs, by headings. I'll show you that in a bit, so that you can keep your information organized. We want you to get that 8 marks. You are also getting 2 marks for integrating those illustrations that we just spoke about in the analysis of data. So we don't want your illustrations to be separate from your points that you have presented. You must find a way to tie in both. We also want the quality of data that you have presented to be accurate, appropriate, and relevant. And this comes up a whole lot, especially when we're looking at the physical studies. Is the data making any sense? So for example, if it is that you went out and you look at the types of waves in an area, and you are making some sort of analysis as to the type of wave, it's a destructive or a constructive wave, is it matching up to the data that you have? Is it 6 to 8 waves that would make it a constructive wave? Or is it over that would make it destructive? So you have to ensure that whatever the information that you have collected, it's accurate. And lastly, you are being marked for how well you communicate the information within the SBA. So we don't want you to have any of those grammatical errors. So you're going to read over the SBA 2, 3, 4, 5 times so that your SBA is grammar free. Now, just to go back and delve a little bit more into how we wanted to organize the data, because this section is so very important. We want you to ensure that you are guided by different headings and subheadings. Now, a lot of times we know that information that you collect is quite a bit. So we want to ensure that you actually come up with suitable subheadings and headings so that your information is nicely organized. So if it is a study that looks at different factors within a particular location, then we want you to go ahead and separate it, because that's a bit of analysis too. If you're able to determine which factors are physical from which factors are human, we want you to go ahead and organize it as such. So physical factors first, and under the physical factors, you have your subheadings, and thereafter you have your human factors, and under that heading, you actually have your subheadings. Again, here is another example of how the information is nicely interwoven with the illustrations that we have. So again, look through your SBA and ensure that all the illustrations are not bunched up in a particular area. We want it nicely interwoven with the text so that you're able to get the maximum marks. Again, another example that looks here at the location of a food processing plant. We want to ensure that your aerial photographs, if it is that you're using them, they are nicely labeled, captioned properly, and reference is made to them when you are doing the description of findings or you're doing your presentation of data. So here we have the Grace Kennedy plant is located on flat coastal land that is approximately 10 meters above sea level. Plate 1 shows the plant occupying land less than 100 meters from the southern coast of Jamaica. And after you have made that point, very close to that, we have the photograph following that. So we want to ensure that you keep the information as tight as possible with the illustrations. Again, another example, we have the photograph there. It's nicely labeled, and with the labeling, we actually have the information that is actually explaining the photograph. So quite a bit there to do for the presentation of data, and this is the section of the SBA that will take most of your time. And if it is that you're in grade 11, then I'm hoping that we would have gotten the opportunity to get as close as possible to that 22 marks that we need for this area. It takes quite a bit of drafts in order to get it perfect, but we have a little bit more time that you can actually use to make this section what it's supposed to be. Now, at the very end of the SBA is where you actually have your conclusion. And this is a section that tends to be rushed, but we want to ensure that you spend the time to write a good summary of the main points that you had in your research. This is 4 marks. So I know most of us would have done summary writing in English. This is where we get to apply those summary writing skills. So you're going to be looking back through the SBA to summarize the main points that you have. Those points must relate to your aim. So we really don't want you to go off tangent and bring up new information that was not presented in the SBA. You must ensure that the points that you have here, it relates to your aim and it relates to the information that was presented in the SBA. Also, in the conclusion, you can actually include solutions or limitations that you may have to the study. So if it is that you presented a study on pollution, for example, you may include some sort of solutions as to why pollution was a problem in this area, and provide some solution for persons going forward. Or if it is that you went out in the field and there were several limitations to your study that would have hindered you from collecting the data that you would have wanted, then you can also include that in your SBA, that in your conclusion of your SBA. We really don't want you to end the SBA by saying that the aim was achieved, or the aim or the SBA or the project was a success. We want to ensure that you have actually put together a healthy paragraph or two nice paragraphs, nicely summarizing all that you have in the data presentation. And that includes the description of the findings that you would have had, some of the analysis that you would have done, as well as the discussion. So there's quite a bit that you can actually include in the conclusion. We don't want it too long because we don't want a repeat of the entire project, but you are actually bringing out the salient points in the conclusion. And it's 4 marks. So we don't want it to give away that 4 marks at all. It's at the end, but we want to ensure that you capitalize on all of the marks that are up for grabs. So for conclusion, for the example that we have on screen, and this is actually coming from a study that looked at fluvial features along the Wagwater River. So the study indicates the many changes of the fluvial features along a river's course. So from this, we are nicely summing the information and saying that there were changes that were shown or reflected along the river. From that, you go ahead now and you quickly point out what those changes are, as well as the most important or the dominant factors that would have caused such changes. And that would be your conclusion. And if it's done properly, you would have actually gotten your full 4 marks. Another example of a conclusion, and again, drawing from the same SBA that looks at processing, you are going ahead now, and if it is that you are looking at the factors influencing location, you're actually going to go ahead and quickly summarize what those locational factors were, be it physical factors or human factors. You go ahead, you sum up the most important points, and you present them in your conclusion. Now on to the very final bit of the SBA, and that's your bibliography. And it's very important that we actually include our bibliography, because in our analysis and in our discussion, we would have actually used sources, secondary sources that we need to give credit to. And that would have included the text, the websites, any other secondary information that you would have come across, and you actually made mention of it in the presentation, analysis, and discussion. So this is where you're crediting those sources that you used. So within the bibliography, we want to ensure that you credit at least 2 recognized texts or any sources that were pertinent to your study. So it could be that you actually used aerial photographs, you use other sources such as newspaper clippings. You actually make reference to it here in the bibliography. Now, this is what the bibliography ought to look like. So in alphabetical order, you would have listed your sources by the author's last name. So here we have Guinness placed before Rubinstein and then Wilson. A lot of times we lose the 1 mark that is given over to this section because we don't have the sources listed in alphabetical order. So look back at the SBA and ensure that all the authors are listed by alphabetical order. The titles, they are supposed to be underlined, and that should follow the name of your publication, the place of publication, as well as the year of publication. There is no penalty for the style that you use. You can actually go ahead and use the APA style or the MLA style. Your teacher would have given you a little bit more information on that. But as long as you actually have all the sources written in a consistent manner. So don't go ahead and use the MLA style for one source and then you switch to the APA style for the next source. Ensure that everything is looking the same. So for this example, we ensure that all the titles are underlined and it is actually followed by the place of publication, the name of the publisher, the place of publication, and the year of publication. Also too, if it is that we actually use sources that were very important to the study, such as sheet maps, the topographic maps that we would have used in class, then we can go ahead and we make reference to that as well. And here we have the proper citation of it. So you ought to give the title of the sheet map, followed by the scale, followed by the sheet number and the year it was actually produced. All other sources that were included in the SBA, it should be presented in the bibliography, be it maps, newspapers, internet sources. Ensure that you have the correct citation, please, because we wanted to get that full mark for the bibliography. And to finalize that SBA, there isn't a mark that is tied to this final section that we call the appendix, but it's very important to provide some sort of evidence that you actually went out and collected data. It is also used in tandem with your methodology. So for example, if it is that you actually use a particular questionnaire to collect data, we want to ensure that you actually have a copy of that actual instrument included in the appendix, because we want to see the questions that are being asked. Also too, the physical studies do require a sample of that record or data sheet that was actually written up. You want to also include that in your appendix. If you have photographs that shows different data collection methods that you actually utilize in the SB and it was very important, then you go ahead and you include that in the appendix as well as details of statistical information from secondary sources. So for example, you actually undertake a population study that drew on information from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. You would have actually put the tables that you would have extracted from their publications in the appendix, because it meant that you would have used this information in order to analyze population trends in a particular location. So the appendix, very important. There isn't a mark for it. However, you have to do it in order to get your full marks for the methodology, as well as to provide some sort of evidence as to your primary data collection. So here is an example. So you actually have the instrument here, which was used to collect data on fishing in a particular area. You want to ensure, as well as your data sheet. But as I said, the data sheet should actually be written up. The one that you actually used in the field to record your data, you actually go ahead and you include that in the appendix as well. And that's the end of the SBA. And I always say that, you know, the first thing that we need to do as it relates to the completing the SBA is to get started. A lot of times we tend to procrastinate and we wait until the last minute to get things off the ground. But once you get started, I want to encourage you to keep at it. Look at the different sections of the SBA, look at the marks allocated to the different section, such that you are able to capitalize on that full 40 marks. If you have any questions or if you want a second look at those SBAs, then you can go ahead and you send me an email at the email address that you're seeing on the screen, k.brown-russell@cdown.edu.jm. I will be more than happy to give a second opinion or to give a mock marking as to what your SBA will be in terms of the grade. All right, I'm hoping that everybody stayed online and listened, and I'm really hoping that for the 2025 CSEC exams, we will actually have SBAs that are getting the full marks. So thank you for being online. And once again, I'm encouraging you to get those SBAs completed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Brown Russell. That was incredibly helpful. You went step by step. I feel like I wanted an SBA just to follow your notes. Seriously, students, that was extremely helpful and will be able to guide you as you do your rationale, your methodology. You have it all in the bag. Remember, your teachers, please register for the seminar so you have access to your presentations. Thank you, Mrs. Brown Russell. That was an amazing presentation, well worth the wait. And let's give a virtual round of applause to her, because she even gave her contact information. Oh, what do you mean? Makes you feel like you want to switch and go Camperdown High, don't it? All right, no. I say no more. I say no more. Okay. So we're gonna wrap up things, but we'll have to do a little giveaway. All right. So first, you guys remember the poll/vote tab? Yes, it's right there in the interface. I need you to look at that because there's going to be a survey dropped in there right now that you're going to be able to give your comment, give your feedback. Please complete it so we know what we can look forward to for next year. So in the poll/vote tab, just put that there, put your little sign, comment. We would truly appreciate it. We had asked 2 questions based on Mr. Trench's presentation, and I'm here to announce the winners. I had given a card based on the first person to ask a question in the Q&A chat, and we have a winner, Miss Olivia Bispot. You're a winner of your card. You can WhatsApp 876-552-4942 to collect your prize. And the 2 other participants for the 2 mangrove questions is Miss Christine Blake, yes, Mrs. Christine Blake, and L. Jefferson Gray, who responded on YouTube. So that's L. Jefferson Gray and Miss Christine Blake. Contact 876-552-4942. Also, we have 2 more credit to give away. I have the numbers, and so quick fingers. Quick prizes. I am going to read the flow number first. All right, ready? Okay. For a $200 prepaid mobile flow credit, number is 335-0855. Sorry? Let me start over. Let me not mix it up. 335-08-54-40-53-365. That's for the students. One more time for the flow credit. 335-08-54-40-53-365. All right. That's a flow credit. Now we're up for the Digicel credit, $200. Use the credit, get data, do your SBAs. Don't spend all the time scrolling on TikTok. All right? So for $200, we have 744-92-87-74-6412. One more time. 744-92-87-74-6412. I'm sure someone's gotten it. If you've gotten it, use that same credit and tell us thank you, okay? Have little manners, all right? So we want to say thank you for being a part of our seminar. If you missed it or you want to review the notes from the presentation from any of the presenters here, I want you to look at our NEPA Jamaica YouTube page this week. We'll be posting the entire recording so you can refer back to it, especially Mrs. Brown Russell's part on geography SBA tips, because this seminar is to help you, right, to achieve your 1 or your 2. We're not discriminating 1 or 2. We really want the 1. But you can look forward to our YouTube page in a week to get the full recording. Also, ensure that you check us out on our social media channels, NEPA Jamaica, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Now, I remember the poll. Remember to answer the poll. I mentioned a grand prize. Anybody remember? I mentioned a grand prize for the student that participated the most, made the most comments. Don't try it now. It's too late. From when? We've been here since 9 o'clock. If you weren't making the comments and whatever from before that, don't try screechy in now. But the grand prize actually is a tablet. I never know that I was going to give technology. We're going to give technology. Yes, the grand prize is a tablet. We've awarded 2 before in the past couple of years, and we're doing 1 more right now. So the grand prize of a tablet goes to the student who participated the most, and that person is, drum roll please. They're doing virtual drum rolls, okay? Don't watch it. And the winner is, we're going to contact you. We're not telling you right now. We're still telling. Wow, I really took you for a ride there. My God, the tablet enticed you. We are calculating the winner, and we're going to reach out to them because they have been so helpful, engaging, commenting, liking in the chat. It's what this seminar is about. It's about being able to provide those resources so you can get the help. So, fingers crossed, if you worked for it, you are the lucky grand prize winner of a fancy new tablet. We don't do refurbished chair. We don't do that. No. And we will reach out to you. Thank you to all the schools that are participating, because as we come to an end, I want to thank everyone for being a part of this event and making it a success. From our speakers, we want to thank them for sharing their expertise and their insights. We want to thank Affinity for being our provider for all our technological events. They have been so helpful and great and gracious in everything that we do. We also want to thank the teachers for being a part of it. You are the ones that keep the students going and really encourage them to do their best. So hats off to you. You deserve the world. And I want to encourage everyone to explore and continue to explore geography beyond this seminar, beyond your SBA. We showed experts that have majored in their fields and are doing well, all related to the various parts of geography and environmental science. There is a space for you, and you can be #1 in your field right here. Be a pioneer. And so I want you to call upon the NEPA Documentation Center, call upon NEPA for all your needs, and email pubed@nepa.gov.jm, or any one of the email addresses Ms. Thomas mentioned from her first presentation. You remember that one. And let us help you achieve your goals, your academic goals. Now, from NEPA, I want you to remember to stay safe, stay curious, and keep exploring. Thanks for coming.